Hello all, welcome to our meeting on the 24th of May 2021. I now open the meeting at 7 o'clock p.m. It is with pleasure that we welcome many members of the public to our council meeting tonight. I will now pass over to our Chief Executive who will read out the formalities.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome all. This is an ordinary meeting of council and my name is Alison Beckwith and I'm the Chief Executive Officer here at Banyule. Due to current public health requirements, only those who have submitted a request to speak on an item tonight will be able to address the council in person. All the current public participation options are still available, including submitting a pre-recorded video, voice recording or written statement. Rules for public participation during the request to speak process are as follows. Please note that any public questions submitted to tonight's council meeting will be printed in the minutes. Council does not accept questions as part of the request to speak process, and no statement may be derogatory, defamatory or directed to an individual councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of the public. A 2-minute time limit temporarily applies to the request to speaks, and the timer will be used in tonight's meeting with a warning will sound at the 1.5 minute mark, and officers will sum up for the last 30 seconds, or the request to speak person will be asked to sum up. I'll just introduce you to who is in attendance at tonight's meeting. So from your left, we have Jeff Glynn, Director of Assets and City Services, Scott Walker, Director of City Development, Councillor Mark Di Pasquale, Councillor Elizabeth Neely, Councillor Alida McKern, Councillor Peter Castaldo, the Mayor Rick Grotti, Councillor Fiona Mitsinakos, Councillor Tom Malikan, Councillor Alison Champion, Councillor Peter Di Morales, Robbie Colosimo, Acting Director of Community Programs, Mark Giglio, Director of Corporate Services, and to my left, Gina Burden, Manager of Governance and Communication. Also here joining us tonight are our support team with our live stream, members of the Governance and IT team and Jets team. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alison. Our meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, and on behalf of Banyule City Council, I wish to acknowledge them as our traditional custodians. I would also like to pay our respects to the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung elders, past, present and emerging, and to acknowledge other Aboriginal and Torres Strait elders joining us this evening. This Wednesday, the 26th of May, marks National Sorry Day, which commemorates the 1997 tabling in the Federal Parliament of the Bringing Them Home report. Sorry Day is held to remember and commemorate the mistreatment of Australia's First Nations peoples who pre-existed prior to colonisation. This day is about supporting the ongoing process of reconciliation between First Nations peoples and settler populations, and recognises the ongoing impact of previous government policies. Thursday, the 26th of May, marks the beginning of Reconciliation Week, which has the theme of More Than a Word, Reconciliation Takes Action. Please check the Council website for details on events marking Sorry Day and Reconciliation Week. Council is committed to and values diversity within our community, and I will now read our diversity statement that demonstrates our commitment. Banyule is a diverse community made up of people from different cultures, beliefs, abilities, bodies, ages, sexualities, genders and identities. Council is committed to inclusion, access and equity for everyone. These principles foster cohesiveness, empower people and improve the well-being of our Banyule community. Now moving on to apologies and leave of absence. Does any councillor wish to advise of a leave of absence? We will note no in that regard. Next item of business is to confirm the minutes for the ordinary meeting of council held on the 3rd of May 2021. Can I have a councillor to move? Councillor Malikan and Councillor Di Pasquale to second. I now put the motion. All those in favour? And all those against? I declare the motion carried. Just for a matter of public record, at the last council meeting, a question was submitted by a member of the public that was changed by the council officers. The question that was originally submitted by Ms Susan Martin was in council meeting agenda attachments of 12th of April 2021, item 5.4 Rosanna Library / Woolworths, in brackets Fabco Proprietary Limited Partnership. Council's indicative timeline states commence of sale of land statutory process, July 2021 to August 2021. There is no mention of either a subdivision process or a rezoning process to change the land, in brackets PUZ, to a more suitable zoning of the much larger Woolworths supermarket. So could council detail the normal requirements for sale of public land and how this process will differ for their partnership with Woolworths, in brackets Fabco Proprietary Limited? That was the official question, and that will be recorded in tonight's minutes along with the answer that will be provided, and that will accompany the other questions that council had received in writing this evening with the responses. And I do reiterate to the public that it's council policy to accept all questions as written, other than which they, in cases where they may be personal in nature toward a councillor or member of councillor staff, derogatory, defamatory, or carry other issues of risk to the council or community, where a question submitted from the public is altered or removed, all councillors are advised of this, and the person submitting the question is also notified. And I hope the explanation I've now provided clarifies council's position with regard to the receipt of questions from the public. We now move to the disclosure of interests. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening?
Yes, Mayor, for 2.1 and 6.1.
Thank you, councillor. And the councillor is aware of his obligations when those items come before the council. We now have a presentation, and it's a very special presentation from Kamal Singh, who is council's Integrated Planning Project Manager. The main project Kamal has been coordinating over the past 6 months has been the development of council's community vision and council plan in collaboration with the community. On a personal level and on behalf of the entire councillor group, we would like to offer our sincerest gratitude and thanks and appreciation, Kamal, for the terrific work that you have done in collaboration with our officers and the community. We're truly honoured, to be honest, to have an officer of your commitment and calibre lead this process, and I don't think it would have been the success it has without your work and leadership. Now that I've embarrassed Kamal, I'd like to hand over to you, and you can tell us about the exciting and important work that the Community Working Group has achieved in developing Banyul's vision for 2041. Thank you, Kamal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was very, very kind words. Good evening, councillors, community members. Sorry, I have my back towards you, but apologies for that. Staff and everyone who's attending this event from home. As a council's project manager for Banyul 2041 project, I want to give you a brief update on the project and also here to share an exciting news with you about our new community vision. Banyul 2041, Shaping Our Future project is all about working with our community to create a new vision for Banyul City Council and also the council plan and inform our long-term financial plan. Hearing from community has been at the heart of this project. We started this journey back in November last year when we began our initial consultation with our community to understand what the aspirations are for our future. We received over 1,400 responses from our community, that told us what Banyul community values and what are the aspirations for their future, what sort of municipality they hope to live, work, and play in by 2041. To make sure that our community has a voice and a platform to shape our future for the next 20 years, we formed a community working group. So this community working group was made up of approximately 50 community members representing Banyul through diversity, gender, age, abilities, and the backgrounds. We called it as a mini Banyul. It was a true reflection of our community. Over the series of workshops, this community working group has developed a co-authored vision statement, identified the themes to focus for the next 20 years, and also made a series of recommendations on delivering of the council plan and the long-term financial plan. In the recent session, which was held on the 15th of May, this community working group has developed a co-authored vision statement, which I'm very excited to share with you all. So vision for our future is, we in Banyul are a thriving, sustainable, inclusive, and connected community. We are engaged, we belong, and we value and protect our environment. This project has been an amazing journey, and personally, I am proud of being part of this project. It is, in fact, in the first time in the history of the Banyul where we have worked with the community directly to develop a vision for our future. It brings our community into the core of our policy and the strategy, and it's to reflect our local aspirations. But this is not the end of the journey for us. So as a sum of the next step for this project, a formal report would be presented to the council on 28th of June that highlights the journey of this community working group. Also, as a project team, we will continue to develop our vision document, council plan, and also long-term financial plan. All these 3 plans will be ready by mid-August for the further community feedback. And following that, council will consider these documents to be formally adopted in October. So now I would like to hand over the community vision that was developed or co-authored by our community working group members to our Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Kamal, again, and to you and your team. We have a procedural motion now, and the following petition report relates to a later item on the Ivanhoe Sports Precinct, and both items can be considered in succession. May I have a councillor move a procedural motion to consider item 6.1, Ivanhoe Sport Precinct Plan, immediately after item 2.1, East Ivanhoe Bowls, and before any other item. Moved Councillor Champion and seconded Councillor Neely. Would either of you like to speak to that? No? I'll put that in motion. All those in favour and those against? I declare that carried. Councillor De Morales, you have declared a general conflict of interest in items 2.1, East Ivanhoe Bowls, and item 6.1, Ivanhoe Sport Precinct Plan. Councillor, can you please outline the nature of the conflict of interest?
Thank you, Mayor. I am a part of the executive team that uses the facilities of Ivanhoe Bowling Club. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. You may leave the room now until after those items have been considered. Item 2.1, East Ivanhoe Bowling Club. We have one speaker, and I would like to ask Simon Dunks to please make your way to the lectern.
Hi. Sorry if I'm a bit shaky, but I've had the AstraZeneca and it doesn't like me.
That's
And
okay. Take your time, sir.
I don't like it either. East Ivanhoe Bowls Club has recently been subject to rumour, speculation and scurrilous information. I have here a petition that hundreds of people have signed in good faith, but apparently some of their signatures have been discounted on some technicality. But it still can't remove the fact that they have signed it in good faith. They are voters, and their intention and their opinion as voters in this precinct is denigrated, as their rights are, by their right to a voice. Along with all of those of the thousands of people who use the facilities of East Ivanhoe Bowls Club. Page 70 of the outline of this particular meeting tonight states that the Council is seeking a long-term plan. East Ivanhoe Bowls Club is celebrating its 70th year. Surely that constitutes the definition of long-term. The Croquet Club has been given a 5-year lease, which East Ivanhoe Bowls Club has been denied. The Groundsman's Cottage is a safe house for the park users at night and kids, and on numerous occasions has been used as the site to call in the police for a variety of infractions and is available 24/7. Oops. We have a facility to host bowls events at state level, even federal level, which no other neighbouring club can equal. Some of our neighbouring clubs are totally unaware that we are potentially being rolled over. We are being
Mr.
rolled
Dunks,
over.
may I ask you to sum up as your time has lapsed?
Okay. How long have I got?
You've run out of time, and we do have many speakers this evening, and in fairness to all, we are looking to stick within the allocated times for speaking of 2 minutes. So if you may sum up, I'd be very grateful.
I will sum up. Thank you. East Ivanhoe Bowls Club is a vibrant. 2,000-3,000 people have been through there and used this facility. They are all local people. This is a community-based organisation. This does not need to be rolled over for a practice court for another sport. My oldest brother sits on a federal council as an advisor for elder abuse, and this is, in his terms, constituting elder abuse. Thank you, and I submit this petition somewhere.
Thank you, sir. We'll duly receive that petition.
Thank you.
Councillors, we have a recommendation on our papers. May I have a councillor move? Moved Councillor Castaldo, and a seconder, Councillor McKern. Councillor Castaldo, do you wish to speak? No? Councillor McKern? Noting we've got the item just coming up after this. Councillor Di Pasquale.
Yes, Mayor, just would like to mention, and thank you, Gallery, for coming in. This is our first gallery that we've had since COVID began. So it's been over a year, Mayor. So it's actually great to have members of the public into our meetings tonight. Look, Mayor, I don't think, and I don't want to speak out of turn with regards to the decision tonight, but I don't think there'd be any reason why we wouldn't be accepting this petition this evening. We're actually voting to accept a petition so that officers can actually go through the work and look at it and then come back to council with recommendations. So absolutely, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think on behalf of the councillors, we will be accepting this petition tonight. Thank you very much to our speaker this evening as well. Timing-wise, Mayor, it's very difficult. I remember being from a community aspect of being a community member, trying to get it down to that short time span of speaking. It's very, very difficult. And you know, us councillors have difficulty too because we have a certain time frame as well we need to stick into, and sometimes we could speak on items for half an hour if you let us, Mayor. So, yeah, thank you very much for the presenter this evening. Thank you very much for the gallery coming in. Yeah, just wanted to make those couple of comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? No, I'll now put that item, the motion forward. All those in favour? And those against? I declare the motion carried. We now move on to item 6.1 for the consideration of the Ivanhoe Sports Precinct Plan. We have 5 speakers tonight. Once again, I'll just remind our speakers of the 2-minute speaking time and the alarm that will go off once that time has lapsed. Our first speaker, I believe, is number 1, Mark Dixon. 4. Please come to the lectern, Mr. Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Mark Dixon and I'm the president of the Ivanhoe Cricket Club and also a local resident. The Ivanhoe Cricket Club fully supports the paper in front of you tonight as we believe that addresses the key objectives that were set out in the first meeting. It addresses the population growth that we are seeing across Ivanhoe with substantial developments happening. That will only put pressure on our parklands and our sporting clubs, both for structured and unstructured sport. It gives netball a home with some 250 players. But most importantly, I believe it addresses the inequality for female sports inside the Ivanhoe area. Many female sports are seeing significant growth with football, soccer, cricket, but our facilities don't either encourage that or don't allow for that. Many women and girls are forced to get changed in front of urinals to get ready to play sport. This is something that will be addressed through this program. Ivanhoe Grammar School at Charlesworth Park have committed to over $4 million to redo the facility down there so that we don't have those issues. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of the sporting clubs for their efforts in through the process. I'd also like to thank Peter Castaldo, our local councillor, who set up the process. And I'd also like to thank Alida McKern, who came on board, and also to all of the staff, in particular Nicole Maslin, who's done a great job chairing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. I'd now like to invite Dina Biviano to the lectern. Thank you, Dina.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, all attendees here and on the live stream. My name is Dina Biviano, and as President of Ivanhoe Netball Club, we first and foremost wish to thank the Banyule City Council for affording us the opportunity to be a part of the Ivanhoe Park Reference Group. We also acknowledge that it is a significant and important undertaking of the Council to adopt a strategic approach towards the future of the reserves within the Ivanhoe Park Sporting Precinct, and we feel honoured and privileged to be a part of this exciting journey. Having experienced significant growth year on year since 2009, we are currently the largest netball club in the Victorian electorate of Ivanhoe. All of this has been achieved without a home. We are most passionate about providing our community with a chance to play netball, regardless of player socioeconomic status, gender, age or ability, and our aim is for our players to keep playing netball for as long as possible. This aim will not be possible unless we are able to secure a clubhouse facility with sufficient training space to sustain our growing numbers. We, Ivanhoe Netball Club, are strongly supportive of option 1 for the following reasons. The land highlighted for the courts in option 1 is buffered from housing and is near perfectly sized to accommodate 3 outdoor netball courts, which will have a flow-on effect to the pavilion, and once redeveloped will allow for a range of inclusive community uses. Ivanhoe Park is clearly better suited to continued use by sports clubs such as football, cricket, netball and croquet. It is evident that the consolidation of these sports within the Ivanhoe Park Sports Precinct will increase community participation in both males and females. As we all know, youth disengagement is an ongoing challenge in the digital age. The hub, home to more than one club, will actively foster reconnection. I haven't got long to go. Haven't got lost through social and cultural opportunities. With the development of additional courts in option 1, though primarily used by Ivanhoe Netball Club, could potentially be available for secondary use by community groups, school groups and other sporting clubs. The hub will strongly leverage and complement Victoria's profile as a sporting capital and will facilitate closer ties with local community and businesses with a view to enhance sponsorships for all the sporting clubs. Netball used to be one of the very few sports available to girls in Banyule. In recent times, however, and not a moment too soon in my opinion, women in sports has expanded to football and cricket, and therefore natural progression to a centralised hub, unified sporting hub as outlined in option 1 just makes sense.
Dina, can I ask you to sum up?
I've got about 10 seconds to go, I think. Ivanhoe Netball Club will be part of the social fabric in this area alongside football, tennis, bowls, cricket, skateboarding, basketball and croquet. It's certainly been a long 12 years for Ivanhoe Netball Club, and we are very excited not only for the future of our club but for the entire Ivanhoe Sports Park precinct as a whole. We fully support the officer recommendation of option 1 and respectfully request that council proceed with the further consolidation that has been recommended. Thank you for your extra time. I appreciate it.
We now have John Meehan on behalf of the Ivanhoe Bowling Club.
Emerging from the back box.
Thank you, John.
Good evening, everybody. My name is John Meehan. I'm chairman of the Ivanhoe Bowling Club, and I'd also like to support proposal number 1. Some brief history, if I may. About 4 years ago, the then chair of East Ivanhoe Bowling Club, John Hybert, and I met with council, and we like to think we might have been the originators of this sporting precinct plan. We're very, very glad it's come a long way, and we're getting some conclusions. There have been 3 attempts to merge the 2 bowling clubs during the life of the Sports Precinct Group. It was proposed that the East Ivanhoe merge into the Ivanhoe Bowling Club structure at John Street and then work together with council to select the best outcome for the sport of bowls. In each instance, East Ivanhoe declined to proceed and both clubs continue to operate independently. Ivanhoe celebrates its 110th year next year. We have 5 Tuesday, 4 Saturday, 1 Thursday, plus year-round social bowls. The future, we plan to continue as a strong bowling club, built upon the foundations of our tireless volunteers. Our membership welcomes the opportunity of upgraded facilities, including access, and we look forward to the successful outcomes for Ivanhoe Park, Chelsworth and John Street. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'd now like to ask Simon Dunks to come forward.
What am I for now? What am I doing?
I have it noted down that you're also speaking on item 6.1. Is that correct, sir?
Let me get my notes, please. Sorry. Sorry, I didn't know that this was...
That's
I don't know
okay.
the format. I'm ignorant of these things.
Go for it when you're ready.
The users of East Ivanhoe Bowls Club are... I'm completely disarrayed now. Our members go from children to very old people. Ivanhoe Toastmasters have been with us for a decade. Red Tag Fly Fishers Club, Northern Darts Association, Eaglemont Scouts Group, Australian Taxation Bowls Association, Parents of East Ivanhoe Primary, Banyule U3A, Ivanhoe Grammar Snow Sports Group, and Rotary Heidelberg, St Catherine's Toorak. Yarra Region Bowls use us for finals. Fairfield use us in winter because their green is unable. Sponsors: PhysioLife Telford sending clients for rehabilitation, the Repat Hospital, Banyule Youth Group, Ivanhoe Park Croquet Club, Ivanhoe Amateur Senior Football Club, all call our place home. We have thousands of people of the community through our doors and using our facility. We don't need to be rolled. We're not done. We're not finished, despite the rumours. And we will stand and we will do whatever we can to save this place from being converted into a practice court, not an actual playing court, a practice court, for something when there is more than enough land available for everybody.
Thank you, Simon. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
And our final speaker on this item, Melinda Catlow.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. Melinda Catlow, President of the Ivanhoe Tennis Club. Ivanhoe Tennis Club has a successful history of almost 110 years, beginning and maintaining its base as John Street, Ivanhoe. The tennis club has one of the largest memberships of the clubs involved in the Ivanhoe Sports Precinct Plan, in the order of 130 plus members. The club also provides for a further 120 coaching students. One of the strengths of the Ivanhoe Tennis Club is its high level of diversity and age of its members. One of our most popular groups is the seniors group, ranging up to 90 plus years of age. This is a segment of the population identified for most growth in the background research to the precinct plan. The tennis club also enjoys a 50-50 gender split and is a key provider and supporter of female participation in sport. Despite this, Ivanhoe Tennis Club is one of the most significantly impacted sports groups as a result of the Ivanhoe Sports Precinct Plan. Option 1, proposed for community consultation, includes removal of 2 tennis courts at Ivanhoe Park, or 40% of the club's facilities, and removal of the clubhouse at John Street. As a successful and popular club, Ivanhoe Tennis Club should not be the club that sacrifices its facilities. The tennis club acknowledges the difficulties of operating from 2 venues, particularly with ageing court facilities at Ivanhoe Park. Whilst option 1 and the loss of 2 tennis courts is far from ideal, the tennis club is put in a position to fight for a solution that is workable and enables the club to remain sustainable, successful, and to serve its members in the local community. If option 1 is to be put forward for public consultation, the club respectfully requests that option 1 be amended to include 2 hotshot pickleball courts within the area currently occupied by the clubhouse. This is considered small compensation given the removal of 2 full-size club courts at Ivanhoe Park. The smaller courts will assist in maintaining facilities to accommodate the club's tennis players, including the high-volume junior tennis coach program, which caters for many non-members. The provision of hotshot courts is also consistent with Council's tennis strategy document produced in 2017. It will also introduce the ability for pickleball, one of the world's fastest growing sports. This is a sport which is particularly popular in retirement communities in Queensland. It is also a racket sport which can be managed by those with lesser mobility and is highly suited to our growing seniors membership. In addition to
Melinda, your time has lapsed. May I ask you to sum up?
So in summary, we are okay for the option 1 to be subject to community consultation, provided that it actually shows the 2 hotshot and pickleball courts where the clubhouse currently is, and also just reiterates the fencing issue that the club has previously identified.
Thank you for that, Melinda.
Thanks.
So, councillors, we have a recommendation on our papers. May I have a councillor move a motion?
Mayor, before we do that, may I just ask a question of the appropriate officer, if that's appropriate?
Please do.
My question is, Through you, Mayor, so the community consultation, which we're voting for this evening, how long will that be? And then also, what's the timeline of action from this time forward after the consultation closes? Thank you, Mayor.
CEO, may you direct that to the appropriate officer?
Yep, through you, Mayor. We're proposing a 6-week consultation period. This plan affects around 14 different clubs and about 2,000 different players, and is a significant site for the community, so we want to ensure that there's enough voice. After we've heard that consultation, we'll analyse that and bring it back to a future report of council with the findings of that consultation, so that then council can resolve on the matter.
And Mayor, just another question. There seems to be a bit of angst from a couple of the clubs, Ivanhoe Bowling Club, Ivanhoe Tennis Club as well. Has there been any consultation, informal consultation already on this process to bring it to this point? Thank you, Mayor.
Through you, Mayor. There has been a significant amount of consultation through a sporting precinct reference group where we've had representatives from each of the key sporting groups. Basically, this came about because council received a number of submissions from a number of the sporting clubs at the 3 sites back in 2018-19. I think one of the speakers noted that a request came forward, a joint request from the East Ivanhoe Bowls Club and the Ivanhoe Bowls Club, doing a feasibility study on a merger back at that point and how the site could be best used for their needs. Council also received at that same point a request from the Ivanhoe Netball Club regarding the need for netball courts. So at that point, council resolved to include in its next budget $60,000 to develop a feasibility for the Ivanhoe Sports Precinct, picking up 3 sites. So basically, since mid-2019, we've been working with all of the sporting groups, the sporting associations, so all of the tenant clubs, and have formed that community reference group and got to this point of putting two options forward with an officer recommendation, which was supported by the community reference group as option 1 to move forward.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. No further questions.
Any other questions from councillors? No? Peter Castaldo, do you wish to move?
Yeah, I'd like to move with a small amendment to note the request of some information, an additional point at the end, a recommendation that considers some information around what the Ivanhoe Tennis Club requested be present on the materials as a consideration for the John Street site.
So probably the wording there, Emily, is considers the inclusion of hotshot courts as part of the site at Ivanhoe John Street, included in the option 1 design for consultation.
Hotshot and pickleball.
That's moved in the name of Councillor Peter Castaldo. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McKern. Councillor Castaldo, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you. Look, firstly, I'd like to thank all speakers tonight on this item and the previous item together. I'd also like to thank everyone that's contributed over the last couple of years on this. There's also 2 other clubs that requested some funding for their facilities, the Croquet Club and also the Tennis Club. But we wanted to do things as strategically and considered as possible because we don't want to spend council ratepayers' money without considering the broader picture. So this has been done as a very strategic piece of work. And today, with the Ivanhoe Sports Precinct Plan issues an options report, we're now moving to the next step of a broader consultation with the community. This is not simply a sports plan, but expands across passive recreation and unstructured play, public open space provisions, community meeting facilities, and most importantly at its heart, 14 sporting clubs with over 2,000 plus members. There's bowls clubs, croquet clubs, tennis clubs, football and soccer, cricket and netball. There's a lot of stakeholders and we can't have everyone happy at the end of this. But we need to consider this as a very strategic piece of work for the whole population of Ivanhoe and the broader community. Because these clubs don't just reflect the residents of Ivanhoe, they're a much broader area. This project doesn't span just one location, it's three: Ivanhoe Park, Ivanhoe Recreation Reserve known as John Street, and Chelsworth Park. A community reference group was developed with representatives from each of these clubs and operated for over 18 months and has had a few delays given the COVID impacts. Significant stakeholder engagement with key stakeholders and state sporting associations has been done to determine current and future needs and participation growth trends. There is far more detailed and important information conveyed in the council reports, and I thank Odie and all the officers and clubs that have participated in putting this material together. Back around 10 years ago, there was a plan to move forward, including Ivanhoe Netball, but it didn't succeed. I'm determined this time to find a home for the netball club and deliver on all of the other benefits this plan offers our community. We will see what comes back over the community consultation, and hopefully move forward with an adopted plan this time. But one thing is important, is that we need to continue moving forward and to deliver aspects of this plan that are non-contested, and we have already started completing some of these recommendations and allocated significant funds in forward budgets already. In summing up, I'd just like to draw attention to one thing I want to highlight. It's the opportunity to offer more access to those in the community that have not traditionally had a fair share of sporting options, and that's women's sport. With over 250 members in the Ivanhoe Netball Club needing a home ground. There has never been a time where council needs to reflect these new expectations in the community and attend to this past inequality like now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McKern, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Ivanhoe Sports Precinct Plan is a plan for the future. Start again. Thank you, Councillor Castaldo. The Ivanhoe Sports Precinct Plan is a plan for the future. I, as an incoming councillor, a new councillor, have been privileged to enter the process of consultation and design halfway through, and I see what's gone on beyond me, before me, and as someone who has been involved in open space planning, can appreciate the amount of work required to try and bring 14 clubs, as well as the interests of the community that might be more focused on unstructured recreation and passive recreation, together to try and satisfy as many needs as possible. I believe the beauty of a plan like this is that, as I said, it's a plan for the future. It recognises a significant increase in local population growth of 15%, which is around 2,300 people at about 2036, and aims to make planned provision by way of open space for this increase in local population. So ultimately, I hope that we do achieve a balance for sporting clubs and access to good open space for both structured and unstructured recreation. This community engagement period that we're hopefully about to embark on will be important to gauge general community support, and I look forward to receiving the feedback from it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak on this item? No, I'll now put that motion forward. All those in favour? And those against? Declare the motion carried. Now I'd like to invite Councillor Di Morales back to the chamber, if he wishes. While that process is happening, we might move on to item 3.1, Banyule Youth Spaces Plan. I note that we do not have any speakers, and we do have a recommendation on our papers. May I have a councillor move? Councillor Neely, and seconded, Councillor Castaldo. Councillor Neely, do you wish to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very passionate about our youth, so I wanted to speak to this tonight. Engaging our youth from ages 12 to 25 in particular is very important. We want our teenagers and young adults engaged in Banyule in a positive way. Speaking to youth on a daily basis for the past 17 to 18 years has given me a good understanding of what is important to them. Having a sense of identity, having choice, having a voice, and, you know, in this case, with this plan, opportunities to socialise, among many other things. So this input is very important, and this is what the plan is addressing. So just to point out, even though our municipality is diverse from Ivanhoe to Eltham North, the community or the consultation part of this component of this plan, finding out the needs of our youth, is probably not too dissimilar across the municipality. The kids, in relation to youth spaces, they pretty much want similar things, and I look forward to seeing the results. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does our seconder wish to speak? Councillor.
Yeah, this is another plan that once you start reading draws you in, and before you know it, you're up in, there's like 100 pages to read. So this was another very good document that's taken some time to come out to where we are now, and is coming out to later stages in consultation. There's a range of activities here that this is seeking to be able to provide to our youth in Banyule, and not all of them want to play structured sport. While a lot do, there's a lot that don't. And hanging out with friends is the top one. I noticed secondly is video games, and after that shopping. A little bit after that comes BMX tracks and skate parks. So I know what I'd prefer my kids to be doing, and I'm very keen to be able to assist in providing great locations for young children in those middle ages between small kids to teenagers to provide nice, enjoyable places for them to hang out in our local community. So I'm very keen to go through the outcome of this consultation and look forward to putting budget submissions forward to actually implementing a number of these excellent options that I hadn't ever considered or seen until I read the document. So if you're listening tonight and you've got children, get them to have a bit of a look too, because they're the ones that will benefit from this, because there's some really exciting stuff in there that we need to get into Banyule, I think, and start giving budget submissions to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Castaldo. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Mitsinikos.
Thanks, Mayor. I think it's really important that we get this youth plan right. Our youth have said that they want safe, inclusive and easily accessible spaces for play, recreation and socialising. We've got the 3 different age groups from 12 plus that we need to cater for, and they've all got different needs. We currently do a great job with playgrounds for younger kids, but we really need to get it right for the 12 plus to ensure that we support them moving forward, keep them engaged and providing services for their growth, because the last thing we want is bored teens.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Malikan.
I'll just say a few things. Yeah, this is very important. As our population grows, pressure on our parks is increasing all the time, so we really do need to get this right. But during the COVID pandemic, the pressure on our open space has increased enormously, and it's highlighted the need to do this. So I'm very happy to put this out for public consultation, because it is vital that we get this plan right, because as our other councillor said, the young people need their spaces to grow and develop with their friends. So very happy to support this tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor? I'll now put the motion forward. All those in favour? And those against? I declare the motion carried. Our next item of business is 3.2, the Inclusive Employment Program update. We do not have any speakers on the item this evening. May I have a councillor move? Moved Councillor Malacan and seconded Councillor Champion. Councillor Malacan.
Yeah, thank you very much. A great initiative, and kicked off by the Mayor a while back. Also an award-winning program that this council is recognised for this great initiative. But it provides employment opportunities for people that will really struggle to get employment. And it's amazing how when you work with people from a diverse background and with a diverse number of skills, how it just allows you to see a different world, to experience how some people, what their day-to-day life's like, and it really opens up your eyes to being much more inclusive to everybody that you meet. And this program, I think, it's made our staff proud to be a part of an organisation that values other people, that provides opportunities and promotes diversity. And I think if you talk to any of the staff, they actually take pride coming to work for Banyule, because we run these sorts of programs. We're not just out here to, get the best out, squeeze everything we can out of our staff, but we're here to actually help our community, help people that struggle, and that just makes us as councillors feel better about our role, and staff to feel pride in this organisation. And I think that's a great thing. And as I've often said, if every person reaches their potential, as a community, we'll be all better off. And these programs are part of that. So I'm very proud of this progress. Happy to support this tonight. Looking forward to even greater things in the future. But I think this is a program this council can be very proud of.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Champion.
I'll speak briefly. Thank you, Mayor. I do want to thank you for your initiative over the last couple of years with this program. I fully support it. Coming from the vocational education and training sector, as Councillor Liz has been involved in education of youth for 17 years, I've been involved in education for youth and adults for 13 years. And what I got out of my role as an educator is I got to see how valuable people feel that they are and how much they can contribute to others by having a job. So I fully support this program. I will continue to support this program. It is one of the programs that I'm very, very proud of, and I love to see our officers receive awards and be just as proud of it. So I'll certainly continue supporting this as long as it takes. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Neely.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate what my fellow councillors have said so far. This program really levels the playing field for all the applicants, and it is quite a heartwarming thing to be part of. And I do thank all the work that was done on that in the past.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor? Councillor Di Pasquale.
Mayor, I understand that you can't move an item like this being the chair. You could have seconded it though. So thank you for giving up the second as well, but this is a great initiative of yours. I'd like to hear from you if we possibly could. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I wasn't intending to speak, and I was very grateful that Councillor Champion seconded, because I think it shows the commitment that we've come to as a group of councillors, unanimous support from when the program was initiated by council, and unanimous support throughout its journey, and completely and fully embraced by officers from the Chief Executive right throughout the organisation. And so I'm quite happy now and quite quite encouraged to sit back and to hear all the positive commentary coming from our councillors and our officers, because I think it reflects now how well embedded this program is in terms of everything that we do as a council. And I think that it's not only delivering great outcomes for those that participate in the program and often giving them their first head start in life, their first job, their first foot in the door, as I'd like to call it, but as a council, we've received so much in return. We benefit from the knowledge, we benefit from the skills, we benefit from the expertise. And just as a couple of case studies, the Chief Executive told me about one of the officers in the program overseeing our customer service department throughout the entire summer period in an acting position. So from someone who was struggling for an opportunity, getting into the program and then leading a team over the summer period, I mean, that's an enormous credit to the program, but an enormous benefit to us that we've been able to benefit from that knowledge and expertise. And, you know, as we all know, on our day-to-day activities, we're serviced and supported now by Ruby, who's come through the Inclusive Employment Program. And we benefit enormously as a council of support from her assistance and support toward us. So I think it's really important to highlight that while the program delivers so much for those who have engaged within it, we as a council get so much more back in return. And so I'd just like to thank all those who have gone through it and all those who will in the future. And thank you so much for the contribution and the benefit that you give to us and to our community. Sorry for going over time. Does any other councillor wish to speak? No, in that case, I'd like to put forward the motion. All those in favour? And those against? I declare the motion carried. The next item of business is item 3.3, the review of the Banyule Advisory Committees. This item will involve reviewing and determining the nominations for each committee. But ahead of that, I understand that we also have wording that differs from the recommendation in our papers. May I have a councillor, Councillor McKern, take us through those suggested amendments?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Point 3, amend the Banyule Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee, BCAC, terms of reference, and BCAC will be the new advisory committee to replace BIAC, to be consistent with other advisory committee terms of reference and include A, under section 4.1, include the role of the chair is to approve the agenda and the minutes. B, under section 4.2, include at least 2 members that should have specific climate change experience. 3C, under 4.3, include the draft agenda will be issued to the chair 2 weeks prior to the scheduled meetings. And 3D, that BCAC working groups are to be chaired by a councillor, and if no councillor is available to chair, then it will default to a council officer. Sorry?
Thank you, Councillor. Were there any other amendments?
It's just to add a word. Sorry.
Sorry, Councillor.
Do you want to add something, did you?
Sorry, for item C, include that, just the word that. The draft agenda will be issued to the chair 2 weeks prior to the scheduled meetings. That's all. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Neely. You're comfortable with that, Councillor McKern? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
And there was some other amendments.
Yes, Amendment 10.
Scroll up, I believe, Councillor. There was an Amendment 8.
Amendment 8 receives a report on the outcomes of a review of the advisory committees in May 2022. Item 10, acknowledge the review of its urban forest strategy may include the establishment of a standalone reference group. And item 11, receive a further report that perhaps should read considers, the preparation of an urban food strategy.
Thank you, Councillor, for outlining those amendments to the officer recommendation. May I also have you go through the list of councillor nominations to each committee? Or would you like me to do that?
You can do that, Mr Mayor. Have the honour.
So we have as nominee delegate for the Inclusive Banyule Advisory Committee, Councillor Mark Di Pasquale, Chair, and Councillor Tom Malikan, delegate, Councillor Peter Di Morales, substitute. For the Reconciliation Action Plan Advisory Committee, Councillor Peter Di Morales, Chair, Councillor Rick Garotti, delegate, and Councillor Peter Castaldo, substitute. For the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee, Councillor Elizabeth Neely, Chair, Councillor Peter Di Morales, delegate, Councillor Fiona Mitsinikos, substitute. For the Banyule Environment and Climate Change Action Advisory Committee, Councillor Alida McKern, co-chair, Councillor Peter Castaldo, co-chair, Councillor Tom Malikan, substitute. For the Multicultural Committee, Councillor Fiona Mitsinikos, Chair, Councillor Mark Di Pasquale, substitute. The Disability and Inclusion Committee, Councillor Rick Garotti, Chair, Councillor Alison Champion, substitute. The LGBTIQ+ Committee, Councillor Peter Castaldo, Chair, Councillor Alison Champion, substitute. And the Age Friendly City Committee, Councillor Tom Malikan, Chair, and Councillor Elizabeth Neely, substitute. So with those nominations and the amendments that have been read out by Councillor McKern, do I have you moving that in its entirety, Councillor?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. And a seconder, Councillor Peter Castaldo. Councillor McKern, do you wish to speak to the item? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A new council and it's meant review of our existing advisory committees. And as you can see by what Mayor Garotti has read out, we now have 4 main committees and 4 support committees. It's an exciting time, and I think all the councillors involved look forward to chairing these committees. Discussion in terms of reviewing and streamlining the committees aim to deliver best relevance and best practice recommendations for our community. Of particular interest to myself and Councillor Castaldo is the Banyule Environment Advisory Committee, now becoming BCAC, the Banyule Environment and Climate Action Committee. This is a really important change for this committee. Previously, it has been going for, I believe, 20 years, and it acknowledges the change needed on climate action and the focus that Council needs to provide both on mitigating carbon emissions and adapting to a changing climate. So it's an exciting time, and we look forward to chairing these committees together with officers and members of the community for some really proactive recommendations and outcomes. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Peter Castaldo.
Yeah, this is my second term on council, and from my first term, I feel that these committees are perhaps the most important tool just about to inform councillors on what are deeply important issues to people in our community. It both informs the councillors but also plays an important role in supporting documents that delve into a range of matters for council. So we spent a lot of time discussing these. It wasn't easy, but we wanted to make sure that we really thought about what was the best avenue. And a significant change here is the the super committee, I might call it, which is the Inclusion and Access Committee, which brings together 4 other committees. And I think it's really important. This is a good development because there's a lot of crossover between a number of committees. This gives a formal and important opportunity for those crossover issues to really be considered, and I think this is a great step forward. We've also created an opportunity for sub-working groups inside of the new BACAC, and I think they're going to be very important. But apart from this, there's also a range of other committees and working groups that may develop as particular plans move forward. The Urban Forest and Food Strategy are 2 of them that have had a lot of discussion, a lot of emails sent to councillors, and are going to be very important in forming pieces of work that councillors will need to be involved with. So I think this is an important report. I look forward to chairing the LGBTIQ+ committee in the coming year, and I think I look forward to seeing all of our community once again, because we haven't had that opportunity to be on these committees for some time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Neely.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's a really good range across these committees, and I also just wanted to mention that councillors had lots of interest across different committees, but we started with our top choices for this time round, and hopefully over the years we can maybe swap into other areas. So we all couldn't be on all of them, but we definitely had interest across them. As councillors, we endeavour to hear from as many community members as possible, so we can represent their needs and views. However, this isn't an enormous task, and to fully reflect the vast knowledge and lived experience of our community, particularly in relation to specific population groups, this gives us that opportunity. I've learnt that over the past 6 years, including during COVID restrictions, lockdown, council met virtually with the community, and many residents gave up their time to be on these advisory committees. So as part of this commitment, the residents have willingly shared their experience and knowledge to ensure council has a greater insight into key issues affecting our community. I've said that word a lot. This section in the report is my favourite, I guess, the community strengthening and support. As a result, these committees have provided a voice in assisting with council plans, along with the provision of guidance material and the raising of key advocacy items. This work has resulted in great achievements, including the development of Banyul's first Reconciliation Action Plan, Target 28 to protect our environment, and Banyul leading the Equalities Index. I'd like to acknowledge the contribution of these committees to date, and I'm excited to work with the new ones. I'm also looking forward to develop the new Inclusive Banyul Committee that will bring together common issues to cross over. So that crossover is really important, and that robust discussion within those communities is really important on the health and wellbeing priorities in particular. I finally wish to encourage residents to join these groups, and I look forward to working on the new ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Di Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Well done, Councillor Neely. Yes, it is very exciting. I just wanted to, an observation I have been making through the week is it's going to be interesting, Mayor, to see how the Inclusive Banyul Advisory Committee, because there's representatives of the other committees on that committee as well, where the recommendations come from. Like, for example, if a committee member comes to the Inclusive Banyul Advisory Committee with a proposed recommendation, whether that committee sort of, puts that recommendation forward or whether it comes from the other committee. So it's going to be interesting to watch that. I think it's very, very important. It's the first time we've instigated something like that. The committees have been sort of standing on their own in the past. A very big thank you to committee members who have served in the past, also serving now, and also those who will serve into the future. There's no other way, Mayor, to float an idea with the community in a very quick way. The community gets their vote once every 4 years to, get the representation of the council. They don't really get an opportunity to vote on every single little thing, although we do have Shaping Banyul, which does, you are able to give a lot of feedback. A couple of the plans that came up tonight will be on Shaping Banyul through next week, and you can comment on those, the public can. But, on all the little items, you don't really get a vote as a public member. So the strength of a person on a committee is such that they can be approached, I suppose, by members of the community. There's no reason why that can't happen. And they should be going out, or members of the committee should be going out to their respective parts of the community and floating the ideas from the committee meetings with them as well, to get a bit more of a perspective on what decisions they should be recommending for council. That's the way the process should work. So, looking forward to being part of these committees, and let's see how they go over the next 12 months. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? No, look, I'll make some very brief comments. Look, I'm, like you, Councillor, I too am interested in terms of how the recommendations will flow from one committee to another. But you'll be chairing that particular committee that they come to, so you'll be in the box seat to drive that process.
We'll make all the recommendations from that committee, Mayor.
We've gone through, I think it's worth highlighting that Council internally and in consultation with officers and the community has gone through quite an extensive and exhaustive process to land at the structure we have, and I'll be supporting the recommendation, and I'm very excited to see the mix of councillors who have put up their hands to chair committees, particularly our new councillors. These are an opportunity to take on a leadership role within the council, to chair a committee, to guide discussion, to lead stakeholders in informing council. And so I think that our work together and collectively through the committees is going to build our leadership capability and capacity while we fully engage our community through the various avenues. I suppose one observation I will make is that through the process I did put forward a desire or appetite to see a focus on economic engagement and participation and business. That did not come through in the recommendation from the officers, and it's not reflected in what we're resolving tonight. But through the goodwill of the council, it looks like I may be appointed as chair of the Disability and Inclusion Committee, and I'll be driving that agenda through that committee. So if we don't have any other further comments, or then I would like to put that motion forward as moved by Councillor McKern. All those in favour? And those against? I declare the motion carried. Next item of business is item 5.1 for the application for planning permit P1219/2020 for the construction of a multi-storey commercial building at 14 Martin Street, Heidelberg. We have 3 speakers this evening from Peter Hanning, Barbara Smith and Mark Mattioli. Written statements will now be read by Mark Gilio, the Director of Corporate Services, followed by Jeff Glynn, the Director of Assets and City Services. Thank you, Mark.
You're speaking on behalf of Peter Hanning, who's written a statement against the recommendation tonight. By way of background, I'm a resident of Darebin Street and have been before planning tribunals in 3 states as an acknowledged planning expert on no less than 90 occasions over a career path of nearly 50 years, and during this time have occupied the most senior positions in local government throughout Australia. Objections the Council has received outline the fact that the application breaches the Banyul planning scheme in so many ways, and these are significant breaches. The proposed building goes well beyond the specified height limit for the site. The purpose is inconsistent with the intended medical purpose of the zone, and the car parking provision is so inadequate that no amount of monetary compensation could overcome the resulting chaos in traffic movement. More importantly, is the legal question consistent to all planning decisions, that is the Council's liability of its officers if they are found to have failed to have taken into account proper and relevant considerations in exercising that power, abuse that authority if a decision is made without regard to the proper merits of the case, or can be shown to have exercised that power in bad faith. The officer's report currently before the council could well place council in this perilous position, given the so many areas of non-compliance with the Banyule planning scheme. This matter needs serious reconsideration.
I'm reading on behalf of Barbara Smith on behalf of the Friends of Powlett Street Common Inc. Residents Group. This application fails on many issues. The most critical are the maximum height limit of 19 metres is specified in the SUZ3 map for this site, not preferred as in Greensborough. The height should be reduced to approximately 19 metres. The architectural significance of the listed heritage building, this unique 1903 timber balloon frame building by the most innovative arts and crafts architect Harold Annear, is not mentioned in the application and the attached plans. Incorrectly describe it dismissively as a double-storey weatherboard building. Councils may be exposed to exposure to litigation. Part A, land size and dispute. The title shows area is 578 square metres, depth of 37.19 metres, frontage of 15.56 metres. The report on 2.1, site location and surrounds, states this rectangular site with a frontage of approximately 15.8 metres and a depth of approximately 37.1 metres with an overall area of approximately 590 square metres. The attached plans exceeds this with a frontage of 16.147 metres and a floor area is approximately 600 square metres. The abutting landowner's objection states the application includes 35 square metres of my land on 12 Martin Street. The plans include a new boundary on proposed title office section 103 application. There will be no new boundary. They cannot sequester my land and any such application will be defended vigorously, including any necessary legal representation application. Issuing this permit may result in council being caught up in costly litigation. Part B, heritage building damage at 16 Martin Street. There is no independent report from a suitably qualified engineer as to how this listed building of significance to the state of Victoria, what setback is required to ensure it will not be damaged by this development and excavation on a shared boundary.
Thank you, Jeff. I think the third statement will be read out by Director Giglio.
Speaking on behalf of Mark Mattioli, written statement, who's in support of recommendation. We support the recommendation, however, we have concerns with conditions 1A and 10 and traffic conditions 1K, 1L, 1R and 1S. Building height. Condition 1A requires the deletion of levels 6 and 7. Existing building to the north at number 16 Martin Street is a heritage protected building that is unlikely to be demolished and developed. The retention of the building provides an obvious transition from the north, retaining the prominence of the building. The excellence of the architecture, no amenity impacts and clear transition afforded by number 16 allows for a 9-storey building as proposed. We are prepared to offer an additional half basement which will increase car parking by 10 spaces, reduce car parking reduction from 38 to 28. This measure is a good compromise to support the building height sought. Land use. Flexible floor plates are proposed to allow for office or medical, noting floor to ceiling heights of 3.58 metres. The office use contemplated is a Section 2 use and a planning permit is required. The commercial use is clearly supported throughout the Heidelberg Structure Plan with an area designated as healthcare, family support and health professional services, mixed use. We have been in discussion with Alfred Health for tenancy of the building for medical-related office administration. ESD, the development is designed to meet best practice sustainability principles and best score of 59% being best practice. We would be prepared to add some ESD initiatives, including additional car electric vehicle spaces, 2, bike electric vehicle spaces, and 3, plumbing of irrigation to water tanks. Section 173 agreement.
Thank you, Mark. Councillors, I understand we have wording that differs to the recommendation or a potential alternative. Peter Castaldo.
I'd like to put a further amendments to Part A, the deletion of levels 5, 6, 7 and 8, and the remaining floors renumbered. Part F, all car parking spaces in the basement provided with appropriate electric vehicle charging infrastructure to enable future installation of charging points. All bicycle parking spaces within the basement provided with electric vehicle charging infrastructure so that they are charge ready at the point a building is occupied. All external windows fitted with double glazing. Part H. Part I, a minimum of 44 kilowatts of PV panels. Part J, the provision of heat pump hot water. Part K, rainwater to be used for the flushing of toilets for irrigation. Part L, evidence to confirm that services located at the site frontage are minimised to the extent possible. Part M, any increase to ground floor frontage activation having regard to condition 1L. For A, all changes required by conditions 1F to 1K of this permit. Under parking, Part 6, unless otherwise agreed in terms by the responsible authority prior to the commencement of the development, a financial contribution for any required car parking space not provided on the site of 17,500 exclusive of GST, adjusted quarterly from the 1st of February 2016, must be paid to the responsible authority in lieu of the provision for any required car parking spaces not provided on the site in accordance with Schedule 2 to the parking overlay of the Banyule Planning Scheme. Note, contribution to have regard to reduced total leasable floor area in accordance with Condition 1A. A lot of Part B, that council write to the permit applicant and landowner to outline the benefits of and encourage the exploration of site consolidation and the incorporation of further environmental sustainable development initiatives. So moved.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor McKern. Councillor Castaldo.
I'd like to thank those that have made their submissions to this evening and also emails that have been coming through. I must say I am disappointed in the volume of the proposal put forward and can only imagine the sheer size put forward was an ambit claim so as to start the negotiation for a size that is completely in contradiction to all guidance provided in the Heidelberg Structure Plan. The application came in at a maximum 41 metres, which is 9 to 11 stories, and the recommended maximum height is 19 metres, less than half of what's been proposed tonight. This translate, a 19 metre would translate to a 5-storey up to 7, and hence why this evening we are recommending the removal of 4 additional middle stories. There are 2 further reasons why it's considered appropriate for 4 levels to be removed. We need to pay respect to the adjoining protected heritage site that presents as a 1-storey building to Martin Street, and it is set back that will not be developed and is very much going to be impacted by this new development. Secondly, the recommended height is one that is informed by the need to transition into the residential area. Adjoining this property to the north, and this property forms the very last step or opportunity for that step down. And if we're to go with the recommendation as amended, it would be a step from 5 floors to 1, and any greater than that would be very considerable. The height amendments tonight are also leads to a translation in the required car parking, and this now makes it far easier to be compliant. There has also been a range of environmental sustainable design qualities added to the recommendation to enable a future-proof building that delivers for its future inhabitants. and that's core business to me as a councillor. That's why we've put those forward this evening. Finally, there is a recommendation that will be acted on and to encourage the consolidation, as there is a less than desirable operational outcome in terms of car parking and active frontage with the current design. As these narrow commercial blocks are developed, 2 buildings at number 8 and 10 on Martin Street are examples of this, and the development of this block will lead to 4 buildings with this poor activated ground frontage. We have a degree or limited ability to enforce this, but this needs to be considered carefully and responded to by the owners. There is a specific request to work on reducing the necessary services cabinetry on the ground floor. I've been informed that the adjoining site has been on the market in the past, and I strongly recommend that the owners of 14 and 12 consider the many advantages of developing the sites together in the future in the functioning of this building costs, and also the cost of operation for future tenants. All these reasons and inform the recommendation I am putting forward this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McKern, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll keep it brief. I'm interested in some of the ESD provisions that are being suggested, recommended, particularly in the alternative recommendations. It is important that with environmentally sustainable design that we do try to push the edges of the envelope, because ultimately change happens at the coalface. There's an opportunity here for the developer to do something pretty exciting in terms of raising ESD targets and standards. The reality is we can't wait for government to establish policy and therefore hold up a big stick to us before we act. It just takes too long, and businesses that are tuning into the need for ESD and mitigating carbon emissions, they're moving ahead. They're not waiting for government, and I think that we should be seeing this in the building industry too. So here is an opportunity to establish some really productive ESD standards, really practical standards that could then go on to be incorporated not only in this development but possibly in the future. And I certainly welcome the developer strongly considering these recommendations that are being proposed tonight. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak to this item? Councillor Di Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. So, look, I think with the ultimate recommendation, we do risk going to VCAT, don't we, Mayor? I think it's it's quite a feasible option, I suppose, if the developer or the owner is not quite happy with whatever decision is made tonight. Well, then they can take it to VCAT and they can have their day in court, I suppose, isn't it? But it's also, the community gets that option too as well. So the decision that's made tonight, the community members, if they're not happy with it too, they can all get together and they can, as a group or even individually, take it to VCAT as well. So it's definitely not the last, it's definitely not the final straw. But look, it is a bit of a risk. I think we are looking at getting, trying to get some environmental impacts or environmental benefits in this development. If the owner does take it to VCAT, they can pretty much, appeal at VCAT and they can very well not get these. Okay, any conditions that we impose tonight can be sort of wiped off the table by the VCAT member. So that's the risk that we're actually running. But really tonight, Mayor, I'm sort of making a bit of a decision on the basis that we're a single member ward structure here in Banyule of 9 wards, and each council is entrusted to their own area, and each council needs to make sure that they are representing the community correctly and with utmost responsibility. I think in multi-member wards you can hide a little bit, Mayor, whereas you can sort of go one way and then the other two councillors could go the other way and then you could sort of hide a little bit. But with a single-member ward, you've got to be fully upfront with your community and the responsibility stops with us as ward members. So Councillor Castaldo is now on his second term, Mayor. So sometimes a councillor can get elected by fluke the first time, but the second time, no. The community has voted him in the second time. So on the basis of those, I'm really going to go with the ward councillor on this one. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Including any of our new councillors who may have been elected by fluke? No? Does the mover wish to sum up? You don't have to.
Yeah, sometimes officers work in a grey zone in the planning sphere. Councillors also operate in a grey zone, but we've really got to bat for our community. And not everyone in the community agrees. I've had a number of people say they want it rejected, but this does have some strong qualities that is good for the area. We need to get employment in and we need to create a balance, and it's difficult to always know where that balance is best, but from my perspective I think we will achieve that balance with the recommendation that is a joint partnership between community, council staff and councillors in coming to this final conclusion. And if it goes to VCAT, so be it, but I hope it doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. I'll now put the motion forward as amended by, moved by Peter Castaldo, amended. All those in favour? And those against? I declare the motion carried. Item 5.2, Ivanhoe Grammar School Fence and Development Plan. Council received 10 requests to speak for this item, and the requests did exceed the maximum number of speakers allowed. However, the additional 4 submitters have provided written statements that were provided to all councillors. And just for the benefit of the gallery, I'd like to confirm that those 4 written statements were circulated by our officer, Sam Moore, and those were from Tony Gleeson, Anne Adams, Philip Medding and Marie C.R. Trenton. So please do be assured that the councillors did receive those written statements, and as a matter of courtesy they will also be included in the minutes of this meeting. But we will now press on with our 6 speakers, commencing with Noel Cranswick, if Noel is available to come to the lectern.
Thank you very much,
Noel.
Mayor. My name's Noel Cranswick. I'm a resident of Ferry Hills area and I've lived in Banyule since 1985. I'm speaking against the application by Ivanhoe Grammar School. Don't represent just myself and my family, but there's a large number of local residents who we've been in contact with who are also against the proposal. I believe there's over 500 residents that are directly impacted by the current proposal by Ivanhoe Grammar. I think the summary in the papers accurately represent the relevant facts. The area that is to be fenced has been used by locals to access the Yarra River and Wilson Reserve in over the 35 years I've been in the area, and other locals say for much, much longer, past living memory. The right-of-way by long use will be applicable to many of the properties who access the area, so there will be a legal right to that access. Ivanhoe Grammar has not consulted with local residents about their change in plan at all. We only came to know the details through the item on the agenda and the addendum. Many locals use this access as a preferred way to get from Elphin Street to the boulevard, and the proposed fence will block our access, and the design is aesthetically ugly, more appropriate for a jail than a boundary along the boulevard. Finally, many locals will need to drive rather than walk to access Wilson Reserve, and there's a very small amount of parking there at the moment, which has been full during COVID. In summary, the school is not considered a local resident, and the local amenities in this plan should be rejected. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. Our next speaker for this evening is Paul Walsh. Thank you, Paul.
Evening, councillors. My name is Paul Walsh, Banyule resident and Director of Admissions and Community Engagement at Ivanhoe Grammar School. Now, item 5.2 on tonight's agenda is all about a school's right in 2021 to provide the safest, most secure environment possible for both students and staff. Not 1990 or 2000 or 2010, but 2021. Looking around this room as councillors and council staff, it'd be interesting to know whether you'd be happy to send your child off for 7 hours a day to a facility that was reasonably secure, adequately secure, or as secure as possible. Likewise, would you be comfortable with your partner to go to work each day to a workplace that was reasonably secure, adequately secure, or secure as possible? There are two questions I'd like to put to each and every one of you, but I won't because that's not fair. I'd also like to know how many councillors and council staff know exactly the areas we're discussing tonight, where these areas are in relation to staff and student traffic, and how these open and vulnerable areas are due to no protection. If you don't, there's an open invitation to each and every one of you to come to school. I'm more than happy to show you around. Now, it'd be easy to become emotive and quote you the figures regarding the number of students at school who live with the family court orders against their names, and how we as a school are responsible for ensuring these vulnerable children, like all children, are protected, because this is 2021 and unfortunate incidents do occur even in Melbourne. Main argument against the fencing is because historically local residents have had the convenience of walking through the property. Well, historically we didn't have CCT cameras at home. Historically we didn't have to have security checks at the MCG when we walked in. And historically no Melbourne schools had armed guards at their front gate. In 2021 it's a child safe requirement that all visitors on a school property must register prior to entry. Therefore, when making the decision tonight, maybe wear your parent hat and think of how you'd like your representative to vote on this issue on your behalf to ensure that your child was being educated in the safest, most secure environment possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Alice Maloney. Over to you, Alice.
Thank you, councillors. My name's Alice Maloney. I'm a town planning consultant on behalf of Ivanhoe Grammar School. As Paul's outlined, the school has a desire to ensure a safe campus for students and for staff. We opened dialogue with council officers in October 2020 as a result of the COVID Safe Plan and the school's need to sort of understand who was accessing the site. As we all know, the need to now zap in everywhere we go. Council officers advised that temporary fencing was not generally in accordance with the development plan and would require an amendment and a planning application to be lodged. We therefore lodged an application for permanent fencing on the 23rd of November. Prior to Christmas, the council planner indicated that a public information session would be organised towards the end of January. This did not occur. We met with relevant council officers on the 3rd of February to discuss the application, and council did raise concerns about restricting public access. The school agreed to reconsider options and provide advice in due course. On the 5th of February, we provided a without prejudice offer to the council that the east-west connection between Russell Street and the Ridgeway would be open for public access out of school hours. No access would be provided between Elphin Street and the Boulevard. On the 19th of February, the council confirmed that they sort of wanted all or nothing, or not nothing, that they did want access to the Boulevard. Given the lack of certainty regarding timeframes and process, an appeal was lodged to VCAT. VCAT will consider the matter of public notification at the practice day hearing on the 4th of June. The matter has also been listed for a compulsory conference on the 21st of July. The school remains willing to mediate on the basis of our previous offer to council. However, we have been advised that council's position is that the application is not suitable for mediation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Yes, councillor. Alice, may you return to the lectern? I believe Councillor Malikan has a question.
Yes.
You're a town planner acting on behalf of the school.
Yes.
This is a planning application. There's been no advertising to the local residents that abut the school that this planning application was lodged, or any opportunity for them to have input into this process to date. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Carl Ziebel. I can't see around corners, so is Carl coming to the lectern? Yeah, terrific.
Old hips working. Gee. There we go. To the Mayor, councillors and residents, firstly, congratulations to all the councillors on their election last year. I rise in this room tonight to speak not just on behalf of community sport, but a touch of common sense and the greater good. I remind everyone that there are still numerous sporting clubs, organisations who are desperate for community access to this sporting facility. We heard about netball tonight. There's more than 700 female basketballers who need somewhere to play and more than 900 male basketballers. And yet there's only one council-owned facility in the City of Banyule, and the City of Banyule now houses the greatest number of registered basketballers of any municipality in Australia. This fight with the grammar school only serves to further delay or potentially eliminate the potential for families in our local community to access this sporting facility. If the school can't guarantee its students and the wider community safety, I fear they will not be able to offer this facility for community use. This shouldn't be a big issue. Yet I read in Council's VCAT correspondence, item 1.23, they've said the item is not applicable or suitable for mediation. Quite simply, we have a school erecting fencing to secure both its sports centre, the students and the thousands of users that will hopefully access the centre. In summary, a dark, dangerous walkway from Eltham Grove to the boulevard, which isn't even owned by the school, I might add, and has low utilisation, will be closed and force a small number of residents to walk an extra 60 to 120 metres on a recreational walk. Another walkway from Russell Street to the Ridgeway will be closed sensibly during school hours. It's not Midsummer's murders in the 1900s, okay? Schools are secure. You can't walk through LMC. You can't walk through Mary Mac. My fear is, though, the council and the school are willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of ratepayers' dollars and parent dollars, I might add, fighting a case in VCAT and then potentially the courts over this historical right-of-way. Worse still, I'm concerned that the council is willing to delay and jeopardise the community's ability to access the school's new sports and aquatic centre. I, for one, would love to see my children use this sports centre before they grow up and leave home, and I'm just hoping, as a long-term Ivanhoe resident, that wiser heads will prevail. Thank you.
Professor Marcus Wiggin, it's your opportunity to speak now. Thank you, Professor.
Councillors, I'm glad to have this opportunity to speak. I'm a 36-year resident of Banyule and my daughter was educated at IGS. I've been a professor of transport and undertaken research, policy, development and planning for 50 years in several countries and have a special interest in walking and accessibility issues. In fact, I have the honour of authoring the paper recently acknowledged as the classic paper in accessibility. I have specific objections in principle and in practice to the repudiation of formal conditions of access and use of the land provided by Council to IGS. 1. The extinction of public rights of way under these conditions is unconscionable. 2. I have strong objection to the enclosure of land along the boulevard by a permanent fence. I have real concerns over the observed progressive enclosure of public land by private schools for restricted sport grounds. There must be concerns over this as a progressive trend, which is evident more widely. The applicability to item 5.2 is in the trend that has become evident elsewhere, of which this is an example. A small example, but increment are increments. As a general issue, the creeping enclosure or limiting of access to public land by private bodies is becoming concerning As the growing scarcity of public space for unstructured recreation, an issue well established as important to the health of communities, are now often underrated and ill-considered, if at all, when further enclosures for sports grounds are put forward for scarce public open space. These often underserve the far greater number of people not involved in sports, which are indeed of great importance to specific subgroups in the community. Public rights-of-way are a crucial component of public space and access. I therefore press that IGS are not permitted to roll back the formal agreements with the Council on rights-of-way. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Perfectly timed. And our final speaker, Leander Merritt. Thank you, Leander.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I see Ivanhoe, or I'll say IGS, as a spoilt child who is a bully to the community and to the council. They blatantly disregard council rules and procedures and think they can do what they want, and if they don't get their way, off they go to VCAT, where they know they'll win. IGS did not put fencing in the development plan. IGS did not mention fencing in the community consultation. IGS started to build a fence along the boulevard knowing they needed a building permit during COVID lockdown last year, thinking they would get away with this. This is deceitful and disrespectful of council's processes. IGS have a habit of building without a permit and begging for forgiveness after the fact and getting away with it via council approval or going to VCAT. There are numerous examples of this over the years. My family have been walking over IGS for the last 29 years. To allow IGS to build a fence along the boulevard, the end of Fairy Street, Elphin Street, Merton Street and Russell Street will be a loss of community amenity. Common law long use is my family's legal right. I am seeking ongoing access for the sake of my two grandsons who will probably attend IGS for their schooling. My son attended IGS and is IGS's most successful kayaker. Because of this access from Elphin Street to the Yarra River over many, many years, he was part of the VIS, AIS and Australian kayaking team. He attended the World Cups, World Championships for over 10 years. This path through the school to the boulevard was part of his training. He secured Australia's position for the men's K1 for the London Olympics. He missed the Rio Olympics by 0.4 of a second. Residents, ratepayers, the community and my family are asking for council to support Ivanhoe's open spaces and amenity with ongoing permanent access through IGS. Parking will become a huge issue for council if residents need to drive to Parkland instead of walking. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leander. Councillors, as I mentioned earlier to the public, we did receive 4 other written statements. I understand that we have wording that differs to that from the recommendation in our papers. May I have a councillor take us through that? Councillor McKern, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Recommendation A, that Council, having regard to the relevant provisions of the Planning and Environment Act of 1987 and the Banyule Planning Scheme, including Clause 6501, resolves to refuse to approve the amended development plan. As item 2.C, planning scheme objectives which promote walkability and pedestrian permeability, including Clause 2107, transport of the Banyule Planning Scheme. Then that Council, having complied with Section 60 of the Planning and Environment Act of 1987 and as permitted by Section 84, 1, resolve, etc. Two of recommendation E, item 2, that legal representation will be engaged for the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal hearings in relation to this matter, who will submit that Council supports VCAT, allowing affected residents to be joined as interested parties in relevant proceedings. Also, the addition of recommendation F, that Council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to take all appropriate legal action in relation to community access over the Ivanhoe Grammar School campus. And recommendation G, advise Ivanhoe Grammar School representatives that Council would entertain an urban design solution that addresses both A, the school's concern for child safety, and B, community need for public access through 3 existing access points through school grounds that local residents have been using for many years. And recommendation H, that Council invite Ivanhoe Grammar School representatives to attend a meeting with Council's Chief Executive Officer and associated representatives to negotiate alternative options in relation to the changes proposed to the development plan and the planning permit application for offence.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have that will be moved as amended in the name of Councillor McKern, and do we have a seconder? Councillor Castaldo. Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Ivanhoe Grammar School, which I'll now refer to as the school, is seeking through a planning amendment to its current development plan to build fences that would close public access through 3 access points on its grounds, thus cutting off the public from traversing its land completely. We are talking about access points that local residents inform me have been used by the public for up to 100 years or more. The school has stated that its main concern is the safety of its students. Interestingly, upon inquiry, the school could not report of any incident of compromised child safety associated with public access through its grounds. However, in consideration of due diligence and duty of care, I would like it known that as ward councillor, I respect the school's right and responsibility to be concerned for child safety. What I don't accept is the premise that to secure child safety, all public access must be excluded. Over the past months, I've received many emails and phone calls from local Fairy Hills residents who are seriously concerned about the loss of shortcut access to important facilities, including Darebin Station, shops and Riverside Parklands. Mayor Garotti, this council is strategically committed through adopted policy such as Safe Travel Plan and Public Open Space Plan to support walkability to services such as public transport, shops and parks. Cutting off access through the school will double, if not triple, walking time to essential facilities and make it nigh impossible for local residents with mobility challenges, such as the elderly, to walk to these facilities. This council believes in and supports inclusive engagement and partnership building. It's embedded in the bones of the council plan. Mayor Garotti, I do believe that through inclusive engagement involving council, the school and the community and good urban design, we can successfully address both child safety and public access through school grounds. I do not believe the two needs are mutually exclusive. Good design and inclusive engagement has the potential not only to fulfil the school's requirements, but to add value by building social cohesion with its surrounding community. The school is not an island, it is part of a great community which includes surrounding Fairy Hills residents. In considering this item, Mayor Garotti, I am reminded of the old story of the Good Samaritan, in which the question is raised, who is my neighbour and how should I treat them? There is a tendency to be attached to individuals in our immediate circle and not give a thought to anyone else. One more minute, please, given the amount of response and interest. Yet the call to be considerate of our neighbour as we would ourselves is a timeless message. How much better would our world be if we were all good Samaritans? I wish to thank everyone who has reached out to me on this serious matter. Thank you to everyone who has contributed their thoughts. All have been received and noted. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Peter Salto.
We have been receiving a lot of emails on this one. I did also receive one in support of the fence going up, but all of the others were in opposition. I'll respond to a question directly posed this evening as well. I don't feel the need for a 2-metre fence to protect my child. I took down the fence at the front of my house. That suggests my attitude towards fencing. I'm sure parents and students have a range of views on this matter also at the school. I recognise the school has approached this and needs to consider it from their point of view, but we, as councillors, need to consider these requests on a much broader approach. I think these matters have been well articulated in the recommendations and the additional ones put forward by Aleta McKern this evening. There was a negotiated development plan Ivanhoe Grammar developed in consultation with the community, and these changes in access are significant amendments to that plan and need to be considered with the broader community in mind. And they need to also be involved and represented in this discussion. I attended Ivanhoe Grammar in junior, middle and senior school and remember back to the many lessons in religious studies in the chapel about being a good neighbour. My question is this really necessary? And is this loving thy neighbour? I also remember playing in these areas and enjoying the openness, being respected and part of the community. Those are values that I was taught about. Does fencing the community out prepare the students to be outward facing and part of the community? These are my experiences and reflections as a past student. Broader views need to be represented from past students, parents and neighbours. And Council needs to bring those views to the discussion table. I welcome further conversations with the school in good faith to deliver on a broad range of social outcomes that are beneficial to the community and the school. And I thank Councillor McKern for the significant time and effort she's put into delivering a positive outcome for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak on this item? Councillor Malacan.
Yeah, very disappointed it's got to this stage. Council needs to work with the grammar school and not against the grammar school, but also the grammar school needs to work with council. And I can understand how they might be bruised and battered by the process that was the previous development plan. It was quite a lengthy and time-consuming and energy-consuming process. But I think this council's got a very good history of working with the grammar school, and we should do that now. The grammar school is part of our community, but the community is also part of the grammar school. And I reject totally this notion that we need to lock up our children to make them safe. That doesn't make them safe. We do need to protect our children, but we don't need to lock them away. So I reject that premise that to make it safe, we need these fences around the school. And I think we should work with the grammar school. Like this council's had an excellent relationship with the grammar school over the last few years, and that should continue. We should negotiate an outcome that provides the access and provides the security the school's after. And I don't see why we can't do that over having just a general meeting and a discussion. We don't need this legal action. We don't need VCAT appeals. We need to come up with a solution that suits their needs and the community needs, because they're basically the same thing. So I implore the administration at the school to come to the table, discuss this with the council, discuss with the officers, and let's agree on something, and let's move forward, and let's maintain our relationship.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Di Pasquale.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just would like to add that this would be very disappointing if this did get, into the courts, and hugely disappointing. So I think, Mayor, there are many examples of community facilities, schools, etc. Now, might be irrelevant, throwing in a public school, but, Greensborough College, Mayor, has been updated quite significantly with ovals and synthetic pitches, etc. And the public can walk on them and have a kick and use those facilities, and they're amazing facilities. So, look, part of providing monies, I suppose, from council to organisations as part of plans, and also community contributing their monies to organisations as well. Those organisations need to come up with a bit of a strategy or a bit of an idea about the goodwill that they're able to put back into the community. So, if they're wanting to say that they're there for the community, yet, they're putting fences up and everything like that, you can't have it both ways. There needs to be some, I think the grammar school needs to, have a bit of a think about how much goodwill are they willing to put back into the community. Of all they've built over the years, it's an amazing school, brought out some amazing students. I think that should continue on. I think they just need to be a little bit clearer with regards to how they can work in with the community better, and also council. And I think it will work, Mayor. It just needs to be communicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Neely.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I feel the need to comment on this one. I agree with Councillor Malikan said that further discussions between the school and council is the best way forward here. This is a situation that needs collaboration. In relation to shared spaces, the needs of schools and the community are diverse across Victoria. The need for a shared space is greater in some areas more than others. So, to have a blanket situation for all schools across Victoria in this sort of, scenario is not, it's not there. It's different everywhere. At the same time, the need to fence off areas is great. The needs are greater at some schools more than others, and it could be for issues like damage or graffiti on school buildings. Something to consider here is that if this particular area is fenced off, can IGS 100% guarantee that no one can get into the school? There's just another way to look at it or to worry about, Well, does this fence solve everything? School buildings are usually fenced off, the buildings themselves, normally gated, and schools do that for the reasons I've mentioned already, to stop kids getting in, graffitiing at night time, that sort of thing. School ovals or soccer pitches or open space are usually used by the community, usually after school hours, and always without permission. But it continues to happen and is, I guess, not formally accepted. So I just wanted to put all of that out there. The immediate issue of safety needs, for me, more information or to be further teased out. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to comment? Councillor Champion.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to everybody who emailed me about this item. I came into this with an understanding that the school was the bad guy and the community is the good guy. And having sat through the alternate recommendations, having sat through my fellow councillor speaking, and having sat through all of those who've contributed this evening as speakers, I've come to the conclusion that what happens in my ward and what I want for my ward should be happening here, and that is effective communication and collaboration. It creates a much more pleasant environment to live in and work in, and it creates better relationships. So I will be supporting all that has been added this evening by Councillor McKern, because I can see that this part of the world will be a much happier place if everybody works together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor? No? I'll make a couple of brief comments. Council is working with and collaborating with IGS across a range of areas, and I think it's important to point out that that will continue. So the relationship is mature enough on both sides to continue that conversation on other areas outside of this matter. The second point is that Council, and through this amended recommendation, is explicitly expressing our intent to support further conversation, and indeed inviting the school to do this in a meeting with our Chief Executive Officer. So we're extending our hand open to have a conversation, to work through that. That's official. It's on the papers. We're looking to work through the issue. Having said that, Council does reserve our options, and we reserve our full legal options on behalf of the community, and we are empowering our Chief Executive to utilise all of those legal options and tools if needed to secure the best outcomes for the community. So our position remains that we want to work through this with the school, and I think based on the comments and sentiments that I've heard tonight, I think and I hope that there's an opportunity to do that. But otherwise, as stated, Council does reserve its options and has empowered the Chief Executive Officer to exercise them in full if need be. Does the mover wish to sum up?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to reiterate the sentiments expressed by my fellow councillors. I think we're all singing from the same sheet music, and it's the air of cooperation and collaboration towards, as I mentioned earlier in my statement, inclusive engagement and good urban design that I think we can find a way forward that provides a win-win solution for all parties involved. And that is what we're committed to. That's been reiterated by Mayor Garotti and supported by my fellow councillors. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll now put the motion forward. All those in favour? All those against? I declare the motion carried. Item 5.3, elevating environmentally sustainable development targets, project opportunity. We do not have any speakers to this item, and I'm seeking a mover. Will it lapse? No. Moved by Councillor Malikan and seconded by Councillor Champion. Councillor Malikan, do you wish to speak?
This is something Council has taken the lead with Moreland Council over many years, and every time this issue has come up, we've always talked about this should be a statewide initiative. And what this proposal is seeking to do is councils develop a planning scheme amendment and then presenting that to the state government and then to approve it. Well, surely the logical thing to do would be develop this as a statewide initiative that the state government should lead, and then it would apply to the whole state, not just the member councils, which it currently does. So it's disappointing that council has to spend ratepayers' funds to do something I think the state government should be doing. But I think it's very important that we do this extension. Climate change is certainly with us now, and it's impacting us now. The buildings we build today will be there in 50 years' time. We have to make sure that they are built in a way that they will stand the changes and they can adapt to a changing climate. And that's what this is all about. So as the world changes, the way we build buildings needs to change. We need to make sure that they're much more efficient. We need to make sure the materials used will pass the many problems that we're going to occur, the extreme weather we're going to experience due to climate change. So you think the state government will be leading this. And the other issue about this whole concept is this covers planning processes. It doesn't actually cover the building processes. So a building that doesn't need to go through the planning processes doesn't have to apply, these rules don't apply because that's just a building permit. So you think the state government, I know I've read some of their policies lately, they talk about doing this, but they haven't actually done it yet. So I'll support the council proceeding with this tonight, but I think it would be much better if the state picked up this initiative I think if it applied to every council, so that changing councils meant that a development application doesn't have to change. If it applied to all building permits as well as planning permits, that would have the impact we all need. And I implore the state government to actually pick this up and do it themselves so it applies to everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Champion.
Yes, but we can't all be entrepreneurial, can we, Councillor? So that's left to us. I'd just really quickly like to thank our Planning Manager Joel Elborn for his efforts on this, and looking forward to implementing these targets over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor? Councillor Castaldo.
This is a really important initiative that council should be part of. We've already adopted an ESD, but when we consider the additional cost for people to retrofit, to fix, and to get good environmental outcomes of existing buildings, it's absolutely essential we get this into the planning scheme quickly and seriously, because right now we're not approaching ESD properly in our environmental standards. And I think I for one have implemented a massive retrofit on my house, and it's costly, far more costly than putting it in the first place. We've got to stop buildings going in that are not adequate, not designing things as well as they should be, and it doesn't cost more, it costs to build just about. So I'm all for this, and this brings our ESD in alignment with our climate strategy as well. So another good reason to support this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It is interesting, often local government agencies feel somewhat disempowered in comparison to state, state being the bigger brother and seeming to have so much more power. The reality is that a lot of action at the policy level in relation to environmentally sustainable design is being spearheaded by local government. And this is something we should be really proud of. Because we are so close to the people, we have our ear to the ground. This is real grassroots democracy in action. And whilst we might say, state government, you need to do the work on this, it's a bit like saying, well, federal government, you need to establish some targets for carbon emissions. How is this going to happen? It's going to happen through local government, in my opinion. I'm convinced about it. And in general business, I'm going to give you an example of how well local government is actually proceeding towards this path. So if we look at the Victorian planning provisions, there are local planning provisions where there are already ESD targets in place that have to be met by developments that require a planning permit. Where those targets are absent is at state policy level. So it is local government that is collaborating to put pressure on state government so that those ESD targets are relevant across the entire state of Victoria for all 79 councils. Currently, it's only, we do ESD if it's in our local planning provisions, and it pertains to individual councils who sign up for it through assessments such as BESS and CASB. So I actually think this is an important initiative. I'm glad we're supporting it, and I'm glad that Banyule is a cutting-edge member of councils looking to elevate ESD targets. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor wish to speak on the item? No? I'll put the item motion forward. All those in favour? And those against? I declare the motion carried. Item 5.4, McLeod Recreation and Fitness Centre redevelopment update. We do not have any speakers. We have a recommendation. Councillor Malikan to move. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Di Pasquale. Councillor Malikan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I've agonised over this decision for a while and been speaking to the manager at length from the YMCA. The YMCA desperately needs an upgrade, desperately, has for a few years. And I was concerned when I seen this proposal that once again we were giving it an uplift that would actually further delay the upgrade. But then reading the report, talking to the officers, talking to the manager, some of these works are desperately needed now, and they're concerned that a section of the roof will fall in shortly, which and the access into the YMCA is absolutely appalling and needs to be improved immediately. And given the fact that COVID has hit, changed the business model, changed the requirements, and now the master plan needs to be revisited, I'll accept that and take on board. I do hope that we're not just fixing it up a bit so it'll last another 5 years when it really does desperately need an upgrade. But given all the things that have happened, given the current condition of some of the roof, the access, which is appalling, I'll agree. After discussion with the manager of the centre today, we'll go ahead with this proposal. It does provide some funds to get the project to a shovel-ready stage, because I think, and hopefully in a few years, that the federal or state government will make a serious commitment to upgrade this facilities, because it is well used by the public, very well used, has been for a long time, and is desperately needs to continue. It is a vital community resource in that part of the city. So I'll support this tonight, but I hope it doesn't delay the desperately needed redevelopment of the whole centre. But at this stage, I think this is the best option, and I'll support it tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor De Pasquale.
No major comments, Mayor. Just to let the other councillors know that regularly I speak to Councillor Malikan and ask him how this is going, and he's been agonising it over and over for a long time now. So, councillors, he's fully over it and across it. I think it's a good decision, though. There are some works which are needed down there immediately, but yeah, also planning in the future to redevelop the whole site in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor wish to speak? No? I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour and those against, I declare the motion carried. Item 5.5, modernising Victoria's building system, a submission to building reform. We don't have any speakers, and we do have a recommendation in our papers. May I have a councillor move? Moved Councillor Neely and seconded Councillor McKern. Councillor Neely, do you wish to speak to this item? No? Councillor McKern? Any other councillor? I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour and those against, declare the motion carried. Item 7.1, proposed creation of easement at 111 Banyule Road, Rosanna. Wish to note that this item was part of the statutory process issued under Section 223 of the Local Government Act, where submitters have had the opportunity to speak to the item. As there were no submissions, there are no speakers, and the item can now be considered. We do not have any speakers, as noted, and we do have a recommendation in our papers. I'm looking for a councillor to move. Councillor Malikan, and seconded Councillor Mitsinikos. Councillor Malikan, do you wish to speak? Councillor.
Mayor, I do have a question. Sorry, I was a little bit late on this, if I may. Just,
Sorry, Councillor.
Mayor, we do receive a report with regards to, well, I suppose it could be land, I suppose, that is acquired from council. My question is, to the appropriate officer, would this be an example of a piece of land that, effectively would go on that report? And I believe it's a 6-monthly report. And from memory, that report we instigated as a council a few years ago now, just to allow the public to be aware of what land council was accumulating, but also what land council was selling.
Director.
Thanks, Mayor. Through yourself, this is actually not a land transaction per se, so there won't be any land transferring between parties, and therefore I don't believe that it would actually be listed on that regular 6-monthly property transaction report, but I can clarify that and confirm that with council separately.
Any other questions? Does any councillor wish to speak to the item? put the motion forward. All those in favour? And those against? I declare the motion carried. Item 7.2, procurement policy for the period of 2021 to 2025. We don't have any speakers, and we do have wording that differs from the recommendation in our papers. I'm happy to go through that wording and then I'll look for a mover. So we have an additional point 4 that Council will receive a report each year on all procurement activities where tender exemptions were exercised. And an additional point 5 for Council to refer the adopted policy to the Audit and Risk Committee for consideration. And should there be any feedback or comments, that Council will consider these into an updated procurement policy as soon as practicable. All other points remain the same. Looking for a mover. Moved Councillor Di Pasquale, and I will second. Councillor Di Pasquale, do you wish to speak to this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's very important that we do get this policy correct, because there are many tenders which are being sought after, and it's just a way that I think, Mayor, this process is. A little bit of time ago, we were in a conversation as a council with regards to, one, whether we're having, the number of tenderers that we need to on a certain tender, and secondly, whether these tenders are realistic, or whether there's a bit of, I don't know, there's some games that, suppliers play, to be quite blunt, Mayor. I think the market has sorted itself out. I mean, definitely pre-COVID, there was, with regards to procurement, Mayor, the market was running really, really hot. And there was many weird things happening, but I think it's slowed, it's stabilised. And really this is an opportunity for local suppliers to get back in the game, to stay in the game, but also have the ability for council to also work with other councils to probably put more money on the table and get better discounts on a municipality-wide basis. So this helps with all of those aspects, Mayor, so happy to support it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak?
I'd like to say a few words, if that's okay.
Yep.
I quite welcome this report. I think the huge amount of work's gone in from council staff, and I'd like to thank them for that. The standardisation of the procurement policies across the region really puts us in a position where we can work with other councils on having much larger contracts and economies of scale for many of our procurement, and I think that's a fantastic thing. Also, the fact that this will really commit to sustainable procurement, where we can ask for a lot higher recyclable contents in many of the projects we fund. And I think it's a real example of councils working together to increase their buying power and also getting the best possible result for the environment. So I think it's a fantastic result, and very happy to receive this report, and thank the officers again for their hard work, and because it's not easy to work with so many councils right across Melbourne's north to secure this arrangement, and Banyule led the process. And also the fact that the compliance with the Modern Slavery Act, well, it's frightening when you think that slavery's disappeared, but then you look at some of the work practices in some countries and you realise it's still there, and if you really go into it, you realise that it's actually getting worse. How some people are just locked in, basically slave labour, and it's an appalling situation right across the world. And this is only a small council in Australia, but if there's anything we can do to assist to make sure people get a fair pay for a fair day's work, and that they're safe during their employment processes, and something this council should work towards. So I'm very happy to support this tonight, and thank the officers for their hard work and getting this together, because I think it's a great outcome for the council, but it's also for the environment and for many of the other issues we face.
Thank you, Councillor Malikan. Any other councillor? Councillor Castaldo.
It's absolutely essential that council, as a public body, reflect a range of matters. It's not just price, it's social and financial. The procurement policy is one of those places council can incorporate those other two important aspects into driving the economy forward and also sending market signals. This is only one important area. It's also specifications. It's also education amongst council officers. I know council's working hard to improve outcomes across the triple bottom line, but I think, and I look forward to improving those across a range of different areas in council. I think this is the start of that journey, or well, the journey has been going for many years, but this is one significant step in the journey. As a councillor, I'm welcoming this step, and we continue to engage in this. And a single policy isn't going to deliver us good outcomes. It's good, attentive attention by staff in all places and councillors that are going to contribute and deliver good outcomes for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors wishing to speak? No, I'll just note that the adoption of this procurement policy is quite a substantial departure or change for the council from current practice. So there will be an increase in the threshold of approval for the Chief Executive from $500,000 to $1 million. So that'll mean now anything less than $1 million in value will not come to this council for approval and will not come through a public open process. Equally too, there's a substantial increase in the range of opportunity for exemptions to tender. So currently the rules are very prescriptive. Basically any procurement with a value of $250,000 or more must go to public tender. The procurement policy being adopted tonight will provide for a significantly greater range of exemptions to that requirement. Now these aren't bad things. In fact, they're good things. It does mean that council is moving to a more market-based and risk-based approach to the way that we conduct procurement, moving away from a prescriptive policy approach. And I think as well that it positions council to play a more strategic role in partnership with the officers around looking at our procurement spend, looking at the procurement plan for the year, and having input as to where we think different objectives can be met within that, keeping in mind that we have an overarching goal of delivering value for money for our ratepayer. So what this does is moves us from council ticking and flicking the tender recommendations to engaging in a more strategic conversation with the officers over the course of the year. And we sought to reflect that in the recommendations through the reports that will come to council. We will have a report on the procurement plan. We'll have a report, at least for the next year, on any procurement that occurs over $500,000 to under $1 million. And we'll also receive a report on where those tender exemptions are exercised. And really that's our way of saying to the community that, look, yes, we've loosened the strings a bit, we've given greater control and discretion to our Chief Executive and to our management, but we're just putting a bit of governance and reporting in place to make sure that that's operating efficiently and optimally, and that we're comfortable with that as a council on behalf of the community. And I think, though, it has been highlighted that the work that was done to create a shared procurement policy around the councils should really be highlighted, because this really does strengthen Banyule Council to work in partnership with the neighbouring councils around jumping on those shared procurement opportunities. And I know it was work led by Mark Gillio and his team. We really did take the lead on that as a council. So congratulations to officers. This is forward-looking, market-based, risk-based approach to procurement. And through the reporting as a council, we're just going to make sure that it's all working really well. With that, I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour? And those against? Declare the motion carried. The next item of business is to consider item 7.3, to consider the quarterly financial management report for the period ending March 2021. We do not have any speakers, and we do have a recommendation in our papers. May I have a councillor move, Di Pasquale to move, and councillor Malikan to second. Councillor Di Pasquale.
Sorry, Councillor Malikan, your hand was up pretty quickly. You wanted to move, but you will get an opportunity to speak on the item. And I'm sure Mayor Garotti would like to probably make a few comments, because he is, I know you can't move an item from the chair, but you definitely can second. So every now and then you may want to second some of these that you have direct input and is very valuable. So thank you. Look, Mayor, just want to say couple of quick things. Firstly, we see that the quarterly report ending March, there was a lower take-up of the rate waiver, which was part of the COVID-19 support package that we had. Now, that's quite a significant thing, but I do want to put on the table that that waiver, etc., and we were speaking about it the other night, Mayor, as well, in a briefing. What support there will be next, like in the coming financial year as well. So there will be something there also. And I think, looking at economies, Mayor, I think there's still a long way to go with regards to our economy, and it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. So there is going to be some assistance there, but also just confirming and just encouraging the community to, not encouraging the community, I shouldn't say that, it's reminding them, should I say, that we are paying down further debt next financial year as well, in the order of $10.5 million, I think, on previous loans that we've had. This is from an era, Mayor, where councils, families, businesses would borrow with the idea of actually paying it back over a certain period of time. That's the way our country worked. We're in a bit of a different situation now where interest rates are so low on money. There's easy money out there. I use that inverted commas. I don't think it's easy money. I think it's a dangerous trap to be borrowing large amounts these days. So now these days, the horizon of paying off these debts is much further out, and it's not necessarily a 3-year period, 5-year period, 10-year period. It's spanned out 20 years, 30 years, etc. So all I'm saying, Mayor, is that we as a council, and I'm going to make sure that we're aware that we're not going to be getting into any debt unnecessarily. We're in a position, and we've built our position over the last many years, probably 8 to 10 years. And in these current times going forward over the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be no room for councils or organisations to have huge amounts of debt, on their balance sheets. It's just not going to work for them. So, yeah, just making the community aware that that's something that I'm going to be making sure is happening, and we're going to be discussing that a lot further. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Malakin.
Yeah, we'll say a few words. I think this is a great outcome, given all the things that have happened over COVID, and as we slowly return to normal, though until people get vaccinated, we will not return to normal. But then if you look at the impact that COVID had on our sporting facilities, the Watermark just below us and the YMCA, which we talked about before, but also our sporting clubs, the impact it had on our traders associations, the impact it had on our residents. And Council developed a hardship policy, which I thought was the best in the state. Really provided support for residents, or provided support for businesses, for traders and sporting clubs and our sporting facilities. And I think that was a great outcome. And during this period as well, we've completed major capital works program. And I think about the Ivanhoe Library, which we opened up during COVID. We won't mention the Rosanna Streetscape at this stage until it's completely finished. But we did achieve many, and De Winton Reserve was another project we completed. So we continue to provide local employment during this very difficult period. And I think that's an outstanding outcome. But also the staff during this period have performed magnificently to keep the Banyule running smoothly. It hasn't been easy. It has been quite difficult. And yet we've managed to maintain all our programs. We've managed to support our communities, support our traders. And not only that, we've returned a very good economic report for the quarter. So I'd like to thank the staff for their hard work, led by our wonderful CEO, for enabling this council to achieve these results, which I think are outstanding. And I think this community should be very happy with where this council is financially, but also for the support that we've provided to people who desperately need it during our very hard time through the COVID crisis.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Castaldo.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, 12 months ago, I would have thought we'd be in a very different situation to where we are now. We were in a situation that no one knew what would happen. But when I look at the papers and documents now, we're delivering $62 million in capital works. We didn't shut down the place. what we did is we tried to keep things going. And we targeted support to those in the community that needed it. We kept the major projects moving forward. We kept our buildings and services going where possible. And we kept our community going. And I think all levels of government have contributed in this space, and we've done our bit in our community. And we'll end up at the end of this difficult, challenging COVID period in a better position, not a worse, but a better position, because we've continued to build important infrastructure for our community, and we'll have a legacy into the future, not a blip in what council's delivered. And so I'm very, I think this is another good reflection on good decision making by our senior management team and important decisions made by councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Champion.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with my colleagues' comments, especially Councillor Peter Castaldo's comment regarding there was a possibility of looking very, very different this time 12 months ago. And this time 12 months ago, our officers, well, we had a budget in place and it didn't look like this last one. And in a very, very short space of time, we had to make the decision to change that budget to reflect the restrictions and the possibility of economic challenges. And our officers did whatever it took to recreate a budget that has led to this. And I'd personally like to thank them for all of their work. They invested their own personal time away from their families and their lives to create a budget that assisted as many people as possible. Now, it turns out that very recently I've had a lot of feedback from residents, from business owners, from commercial agents who have actually said to me that Banyul's package has been the best compared with many other councils, and without that they would not have been able to survive either a household or a business. And obviously I've passed on that information to our officers, and our thanks to the officers. So thank you for their work, and this is work of human beings who care for residents and business owners in Banyul. So thank you very much to our officers who've created this for us.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the item? No? Well, we're in the black, back in the black, which is great, on track for a surplus by the end of the year. It's been pointed out that a $62 million capital program, and that's supported 500 jobs. So when we talk figures, 62 million, that's 500 jobs. That's 500 people who are working this year that wouldn't have been working if council didn't stick to its guns, didn't press ahead with our capital works program. And there were many around who were querying whether or not we should do that. Many were saying, well, maybe we should defer, maybe we should put things on hold. But we committed to one another, we committed to our staff, we committed to the businesses and the suppliers, we committed to the workers in our community that we were going to do as much as we could. And it's so pleasing, and a tribute to Jeff and to your team, Jeff. And you leave filling a big gap, or leaving a big gap for this council, but that wasn't easy work to do, delivering on that program. So thank you for your work. And thank you also from the operational perspective. We are critical at times, Mark, but you've done well with you and your team, and under the leadership of our Chief Executive, Alison Beckwith, to deliver a surplus in this context and to be able to give that confidence back to the staff and to the community that things are okay in Banyul, that we're in a solid financial position, that you're looking at state and federal governments racking up significant billions of dollars of debt, generational levels of debt to be repaid. To be in the position we are is remarkable, and it's a tribute to all of us, to us as councillors, to the officers, but it's also a reflection too that we're willing, when we need to make the difficult decisions around best value for money for our community. Thank you all. Very proud to be part of a council delivering this result. I'll now put the motion forward. All those in favour? And those against? Declare the motion carried. Item 7.4, award a contract number 1111-2021 for the construction of footpath replacement program. We don't have any speakers and we have a recommendation in our papers. May I have a councillor move?
Mayor, may I ask
Unless
a
there
question,
are questions. Councillor De Pasquale.
Mayor, if I may have the appropriate officer, 4.06 million on a footpath replacement program sounds pretty big. What is our current yearly average sort of spend on replacing footpaths, if that's known? Thank you, Mayor.
Director.
Through you, Mayor, I don't have the actual figure in front of me right now, but I think from memory in the current financial year, I think it's about $2 million. We have some money from the Community Infrastructure Fund, some additional funding, so we've put it into footpaths because we've identified that our footpaths need more work, so it was identified through our asset management process that we want to spend more money on footpaths, so we've poured that money to here. And the intent over the next few years is still to ramp up spending in footpaths going forward to try and improve that asset base over the next 4 years. But I can provide those figures post this in detail.
Thank you, Director. Councillor, does that address your question? Any other follow-up questions?
No questions, but the council would definitely like to move this, Mayor.
Moved. The name is set. Councillor De Pasquale. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Fiona Mitzinikos. Councillor De Pasquale, do you wish to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this brings me back a few years ago now where the little camera, little robot thing was sent down every single footpath in our municipality. So there's I believe there was a little sort of a robot or some mechanical instrument that had cameras on it, and it actually videoed and took photos of every single piece of footpath that we have in the municipality, and everything was logged. So this is absolutely fantastic, Mayor, because when money's become available that we can do an acceleration of the replacement program, here we are, we've done the work in the past, we've invested in the past, and now once it becomes available, well, then we can now invest, which is fantastic. So, I don't think many people in the community would understand that that's the level of work that council officers do, and that's the calibre that we're working with. So thank you very much to that department for all that work in the past and for the works that will be done in the coming year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mitzinikos, do you wish to speak?
Just briefly, Mayor. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of happy people out there because footpaths seem to be a big topic all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor? Councillor Castaldo.
Just add another element to footpaths that they also need to be considered with the triple bottom line in mind. And there's a way to do them environmentally. We will be rolling out some trials with carbon neutral cement, which pays attention to our commitment to climate change. And I look forward to seeing back the feedback of how those pavements responded, because I've got other positive responses from external sources and the great work the BZE did on trying to change industry. We've got a role in this in council, and we put a tremendous amount of concrete down. So I look forward to the outcome of this trial and delivering the social benefit of safety for our people with so they don't need to trip and avoid those scenarios.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor? No? Thank you, Director Jeff Glynn, and you did respond to a number of questions that we had about the confidential attachment to provide assurance to us around the outcome and value for money. So thank you very much for those responses. I'll now put the motion forward. All those in favour? And those against? Declare the motion carried. Item 7.45 for the award of contract number 1107-2021 for the provision of contact centre and managed services. We don't have any speakers, and we do have a recommendation in our papers. May I have a councillor move? Councillor Neely, and I will second. Councillor Neely, do you wish to speak to this item? Does any other councillor wish to speak to this item? No, it's pleasing to see now that we're getting tenders come in with dash 2021, which I assume means that these were run in the 2021 calendar year. Probably highlights that there's been a backlog of tenders that this council has been working through. I'll now put the motion forward. All those in favour? And those against? I declare the motion carried. Item 7.6 is a record of councillor meetings, and once again there are no speakers, and we have a recommendation. I'm looking for a councillor to move. Councillor McKern, and seconded Councillor Champion. Councillor McKern, do you wish to speak? No. Councillor Champion? No. I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour? All those against? I declare the motion carried. There are no documents to be sealed this evening. We do have one notice of motion that was raised in my name, and that is 9.1, external agencies and confidentiality agreements. We do not have any speakers. May I have a councillor move? Councillor Champion move, and I will second. Councillor Champion, do you wish to speak to the item? Thank you.
I will. Thank you, Mayor. Just really briefly, the concept of confidentiality agreements was brought to my attention only this year, and having had brief conversations with a variety of people at local council level, state level, and my residents and past council officers, retired council officers, came to understand a little bit more about them and was just amazed that they actually exist. Brought that to the attention of my fellow councillors and the Mayor, so the Mayor and I have come up with this wording that we have here. There were just two grammatical points that I made earlier this evening. However, essentially the theme of the current confidentiality agreement stands as it is. And it is extended a little bit just for clarification of who is actually responsible for making decisions in council and who is lending their expertise to conversations in the background with various agencies. So I thank everyone involved with this. Much appreciated. What I'd probably say, if anything, point number 3, I would probably add, and any organisations council works with in the future after LXRP. The reason for that is that we are not just limited to these 2 current projects that are underway and impacting Banyule and our residents. It is actually to follow this process with all organisations. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the item? No, look, I'll make a couple of brief comments as well. Councillor De Pasquale.
Sorry, Mayor, my hand didn't go up quick enough, and I don't think you saw it, but yeah, just make a couple of comments. I think the public needs to understand that this is well, firstly, they need to understand that it's actually happening or is possible to happen, where an officer can actually sign a confidentiality agreement with a big organisation or, Level Crossing Removal Authority or, North East Link Authority, and then that authority can say, yeah, we've consulted council, but they haven't actually consulted the council, they've consulted council officers. So there's a bit of a grey area with regards to what is the council. I think in the community's eyes, it should be that the 9 representatives, your 9 representatives sitting here is your council. So if the LXRP or North East Link or any other major project has consulted the council, they've actually consulted your representatives. The reason why that's important is because we take a pledge. We have phones, 24 hours a day we're accessible, emails. Any community member can contact any of us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we'll get back to them. Yet, unfortunately, Mayor, the community can't contact a council officer. So they can't contact the officer that is actually discussing a project or a major project, and that's a major issue. So, you know, this really came to a head when things weren't going well on a couple of projects, but that's not the reason why we're doing it. I think my support for this is we just want to be have correct community access and consultation for every single project. So everything going forward, I think it's going to be very important. So, you know, it continues to stand. Any community members who need to contact their council law for any issues they're having, or, do contact us because we're here to help you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Look, I think it's been covered well by the comments from Councillor Champion De Pasquale. Thank you very much. The two of you, through your respective communities, have brought this issue to the council. And we workshop together a position on confidentiality agreements. And that's really about being very clear that one, when officers are working under, they're to be avoided or minimised wherever possible. Two, we do recognise at times that they're needed to facilitate the technical dialogue that needs to occur. But three, that certainly council officers that are providing technical advice, it should not be purported that they are in any way representing the position of council. And the fourth component is that when the agencies are consulting with these officers on technical matters, the agencies should not be in any way purporting to have consulted with council. So this now will really clarify council's position explicitly, and I think it will give confidence to the community, and it will also assist the community in the dialogue they're having with agencies around what's happening, and enable the community to be able to push back at times and say, well, no, that isn't the council position. It hasn't come to a council meeting. That's input that you've received from a council officer. So I think this is a good decision for council. I think it clarifies things. And we certainly have the full confidence of the Chief Executive in entering into these agreements and in doing so appropriately. And we'll be writing out to the agencies. So Duncan, if you're watching, you'll be getting a letter from me tomorrow. I'll now put the motion forward. All those in favour and those against, declare the motion carried. General business, we are running well for time given earlier items. So I think that we'll go through each item. Councillor De Pasquale, I believe you have an item on the Australian Breastfeeding Association.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, an amazing milestone that the Australian Breastfeeding Association achieved, I believe it was 2 weeks ago now, the 1 millionth call to its national breastfeeding helpline. So 1 million calls, that's an absolutely amazing accomplishment. A couple of key points that I think the community need to understand. I'm sure many mothers and fathers out there know that of the Australian Breastfeeding Association, but if you don't know of it, anyone who's having a baby, etc., you can contact them at any time of the day or night. So the volunteers are all volunteers, so there's around 400 of them. They give more than 1,600 combined hours to take calls on breastfeeding helpline each month. They're available all the time. They incorporate live chat, the mum-to-mum app, breastfeeding education classes, local support groups and health professional education and training initiatives. I would like to acknowledge Leanne Bromley, who was the a volunteer who took the 1 millionth call. And it's quite funny, Mayor. Leanne actually was sitting in on a shift, taking calls in a time where she wasn't rostered on. She just decided she had a couple of hours to spare. She was going to take a few calls on the helpline, and she actually received the 1 millionth call. So I think it's quite fitting with the number of calls that have been taken for someone who, you know, volunteering over and above that time, and she took the millionth call. So, but I also want to acknowledge every single volunteer of the Australian Breastfeeding Association for the tireless work that they do. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Neely, Banyule Youth Summit.
Thank you, Mayor Grotti. The 2021 Banyule Youth Summit was held at the Heidelberg Golf Club on Tuesday, May the 18th. It was opened by Councillor McKern and closed by the Mayor. It involved 134 diverse young people from the majority of Banyule secondary schools, as well as representatives from all abilities, First Nations, LGBTIQ+, and Somali Australian young people came together with like-minded peers to discuss topics that they were passionate about, as well as hear from inspiring guests and youth panellists. The Banyule youth team visited all schools in the lead up to the summit to identify what topics young people would like to discuss. So the list they came up with: mental health, the environment, gender equality, consent, LGBTIQ+, racism, education, issues faced by Somali Australian young people, and cultural diversity. It was a great event. These young people displayed invaluable knowledge about their chosen topics and a strong resolve to make positive changes in these areas. The discussion groups were facilitated by the team from Banyule Youth Services, representatives from other council teams with expertise in the topic discussed, as well as representatives from local community organisations. The summit concluded with the presentation of desired actions by the young people to representatives of youth, community and education sectors, as well as representatives from all three levels of government. The presentation of the recommendations was also live streamed on both Banyule Youth Services social media pages and the website. Just to add in, it was really high level, engaging. The presentation impressed everyone that was there. The Mayor was impressed, the councillors were impressed. We were sprinkled around the room on different tables, listening to different groups on those specific topics. So it was a real meaningful consultation. And yeah, mainly the main word for me is inspiring. Banyule Youth Services look forward to working with young people to achieve the actions and recommendations outlined in the Youth Summit. Council will work in partnership with young people and the wider community to respond to these recommendations, and that was highlighted by the Mayor on the day. And the Youth Summit report card will be presented to Council in 2022 to outline the achievements. So looking forward to the follow-up from this and also the excitement that was generated from it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Neely, and it was great to see some very talented students from your school participate and meet with them. Councillor Fiona Mitsinikos, you've got a couple of items.
I sure do, Mayor. Thanks. On Thursday, 13th of May, I had the honour of opening up the redeveloped Banyule Flats Pavilion, which is the home of the Banyule City Soccer Club. I was joined by our Mayor, Rick Grotti, Councillor Alison Champion, Councillor Peter Castaldo, Councillor Tom Melican, and our CEO. And we also had Club President Nasser Syed and our Vice President of the soccer club there as well, and obviously several volunteers and parents. This $980,000 project has provided a much-needed update to the facilities, including the introduction of female-friendly change rooms, umpires' change rooms, a larger kitchen and canteen, and bigger social spaces. It's lighter, brighter, and a greater environment for the team sport. I've also been told that since the redevelopment, the club has had an increase in junior sports player numbers, which is fantastic news. I'd personally like to say a massive thank you to all the parents, grandparents and kids who volunteered their time to help the club run so smoothly, especially considering it was just Volunteers Week. Clubs can't operate without this support, so it's a massive thank you to you. Also, a big thank you needs to go to Melinda Ramsey, Albert Aboud and also Councillor Alison Champion for their help getting this project off the ground and completed. Thank you. And next. So last Wednesday night, I attended the Viewbank Scouts for an awards ceremony with Mayor Rick Garotti. Matilda Crawford has spent the past 3 years working towards achieving the Australian Scouts Medallion, which is the highest award in Scouts and is a fantastic achievement for Matilda, who's worked very hard during COVID to complete all of her tasks. It was a great night, celebrating with her fellow Scouts, the Scout leaders and her very proud family, and there was lots of food to be had as well. Thank you.
Councillor De Moralis.
Thank you, Mayor. Following on from the presentation Kamal made earlier this evening, I want to express my gratitude to the community group that got together on the 15th of May on their final 4th session, where they got together, engaged and with empowerment, came up with a beautiful vision statement that the Mayor got today. I think being all councillors attending on the fourth and final workshop, and also being able to attend at various other sessions during the process was exciting. I really found it great to see the community coming together from the first session to the fourth, finding their voice, feeling safe, which is definitely something that we like to see in Banyule, and seeing that really play out in a small community group and nutting down and getting to a core vision statement that was agreeable by everyone. And that's been a beautiful thing. As the Mayor mentioned earlier, thanks to Kamal and the officers, but Kamal very much, the project manager, was amazing. So thank you, Kamal. And exciting that this is the tail end of a big project for Banyule, the first time, 2041. And we've coming to the end of a funnel with a vision, collecting all those ideas, 1,400 statements at the beginning, and coming down from all that to one sentence, which is absolutely amazing. So thank you to everyone that participated, and we look forward to implementing that. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Malacan.
Council, I'd like to congratulate the Banyule and Nillumbik Local Learning and Employment Network on reaching their 20th year anniversary. At the recent AGM, we heard of the long and very successful history of the land and the personal account of participants who had gained valuable skills at the land, which had enabled them to build very successful careers in their chosen professions. We also heard about the L2P program, Learners to Probationary Licences, and how an inspirational volunteer had assisted a young person gain his manual licence, and how that had assisted him accessing a job, but also opened up development and promotional opportunities. It showed just how much programs can change lives and the participants and the volunteers. It was actually quite touching to hear the young man's father was disabled and he had no access to a car or anyone to get him his 120 hours, and a single volunteer had stepped up and provided assistance and got him through his 120 hours. He was able to then get a licence, was assisted to get it with a car. He was able to then secure a job, but because he had a manual licence, he was also then able to gain valuable experience, and he talked very fondly of the volunteer and the training he'd received and how it had opened up all new doors to him, and he now had a very successful career. So the Lens has certainly lived up to their vision of creating a seamless educational training and employment outcomes for young people that are inclusive, responsive and innovative. And we wish them many more years of supporting young people in our community achieving their potential.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. One of my priorities as Ward Councillor for Chelsworth is to have a visible presence and a face-to-face listening presence in our community. So to that end, in April, I enjoyed an inaugural meet and greet with residents who raised conversations around topics including current planning applications, climate change, the proposed Waterdale Road Pocket Park and road safety. I wanted to let our public know that I'll be back at the Ivanhoe Library Hub this coming Friday, the 28th of May, from 12 to 1:30, if you'd like to come say hello and have a chat. I'd love to meet you and hear what you have to say around council matters. Best to go via the main doors of the library and ask customer service where Councillor Alida McKern is hanging out, because we might be at the CAF or we might be in the foyer, and customer service will have a handle on that. I'd also like to thank our Chief Executive, Alison Beckwith, for making herself available in April. It made me feel a lot more comfortable knowing that she had my back and was able to answer some of the curly questions that I perhaps didn't have a handle on. So thank you very much for that, Alison. And look forward to seeing you if you have the time to come and drop in and have a chat. Okay. That's it for that. What have we got?
You've got another 2 items, Councillor. Vico launch and then Waterdale Road project update.
Thanks, Mayor Garotti. Last Thursday evening, Councillor Castaldo and myself were absolutely delighted to attend the Victorian Energy Collaboration launch of the largest emissions reduction project ever undertaken in Australian local government. Banyule City Council, along with 45 other local government authorities, have signed up. This means that from the 1st of July, we're going to purchase 100% of our electricity as renewable energy from wind farms, helping to lower our carbon emissions and driving Banyule Council towards carbon neutrality in 2028, which really isn't that far off. It's great for Banyule to be part of this collaborative grassroots effort. It shows that even though we're the third tier of government, councils working together can make a really big impact to reduce carbon emissions and use their combined voice to influence other levels of government. And last but not least, a Waterdale Road Pocket Park and Shared Zone update. I felt obliged to get back to our public on this because, according to Shaping Banyule, we were going to have a concept presented to Council at this meeting for Council's consideration. And that hasn't happened, and I think you need to know why. It hasn't happened because we've had an enormous amount of feedback. Per the written statement, about 70 responses to a detailed survey were received, and in addition, approximately 35 emails with extensive feedback. I also received a lovely A3 plan of possibilities given to me at my first drop-in session in April. So with all that feedback, our officers are taking time to consider it and make sure that comments are incorporated into any revisions to the concept plan before it comes to Council. So what we're hoping for is to present at the end of June a summary of the views from the community and a revised design for Council's consideration. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I think that wraps it up. I've got one item, and it's genuine general business. I'm raising it right now. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank staff and officers for the Volunteers High Tea that occurred on Friday, and just formally pay tribute as well to all our volunteers in Banyule who we celebrated on Friday. I'd be grateful if that could be noted in our minutes. Is there any other general business? No. So that brings us to public questions. And for the record, Council has received 7 public questions. 6 of these public questions will be included in the minutes of this meeting, which will be available on our website later this week. With the exception of one question, that is a service request, and requires a detailed response to be prepared. Once the response is available to that question, it will be included in future meetings minutes. And then a further question will not be included in the public minutes. That question has been circulated to all councillors. All councillors are aware now of all original questions that are tabled, but the officers have made an assessment that that question was inappropriate to table. Closure of meeting. The next ordinary meeting of Council will be held on Monday the 7th of June 2021. We will note that a meeting is happening this coming Wednesday, the 26th of May 2021, to hear submissions in relation to the proposed budget and proposed revenue and rating plan. So please do tune into that from the community if you're interested in hearing submissions to our budget. I now close our meeting at 10:10 p.m. and thank you all for attendance, both those who came here this evening and those who have listened in from home. Thank you.